The case of Zara Alina. Zara was born in the UK in the winter of 1986. She was the first of 5 children born to a young single mother who lived with her own parents. The family had immigrated from Pakistan in 1968. Zara grew up in a close-knit, multi-generational household. Although they didn't have much money, her family placed a strong emphasis on education and was committed to ensuring Zara had everything she needed to lead a fulfilling life, including love, support, and a good education. During her childhood, Zara enjoyed dancing and swimming. She aspired to become a lawyer. She had a friendly nature and a cheerful spirit. As a teenager, she had the opportunity to travel around England and visit museums and galleries. These experiences expanded to trips throughout Europe. After graduating from high school, Zara enrolled in law school at the University of Westminster. She showed a passionate and determined spirit. Her commitment to justice was evident in the auditorium, where she actively supported refugees fleeing violence. She also volunteered at soup kitchens for the homeless. Those who knew Zara said she left a trail of joy wherever she went. She was also very hardworking and managed to cover all her own expenses. In fact, she worked as a salesperson at a local clothing store and was well acquainted with everyone in the area, from teenagers to seniors. She greeted everyone with kindness and was always willing to help. Sometimes, she uses her money to take stray cats to the vet, care for them at home, and encourage neighbors to adopt them. An important person in Zara's life is her friend Cassie Peters. They visit each other regularly or talk on the phone almost every day. By 2002, after passing her exams and completing her first year, Zara was offered a job at the Crown Prosecution Service. This was a crucial step towards becoming a fully fledged solicitor, a goal she was determined to achieve. On her first day, she took a cheerful selfie and sent it to friends and family. At 35, Zara got a new job, which further strengthened her confidence in her plans to start a family soon. Near her home lived a man named Jordan McSweeney. Jordan was several years younger than her. At the age of 13, he had already faced charges in a youth court in Kent for various offenses committed between 2006 and 2009. In August 2010, when he was 17, he was convicted of assaulting a girl, which resulted in her having a swollen eye. For this, he received a 4-month community service order. 11 years later, he assaulted another woman and was given a 3-year community service order. By the start of the 2020s, Jordan was 28 years old. Jordan has a troubling history, with convictions for 9 offenses, including theft, assaulting police and the public, vehicle theft, traffic violations, committing crimes while out on bail, and shoplifting. On his profile on a popular social media platform, he boasted about owning many knives and promoted his criminal lifestyle through photos and quotes. He even shared fake wanted posters claiming he was being sought by the FBI. After serving time for criminal damage, racially aggravated stalking, and illegal possession of a knife, he was released on June 17, 2022. After his release, Jordan violated all terms of his agreement and missed 2 consecutive appointments with his probation officer. As a result, police revoked his benefits and began the process of revoking his parole, with the intention of sending him back to prison on June 22, 2022. 2 days later, on June 25th, police went to Jordan's mother's house to arrest him but found he was not there. That night, Zara had planned to meet a friend, after speaking to her aunt on the phone and mentioning her plans to go out. Her aunt advised her to stay safe, but Zara reassured herself that she would not be going far from home and felt confident in the safety of the route she was taking, as she was very familiar with the area. Zara then met her friend at a local bar called the Big Spoon in Ilford, a vibrant and diverse area in London's West End, ideal for dinner and conversation. The girls went to the bar before going to another nearby venue. In the bar, Zara only drinks water, not alcohol. By this time, Jordan had had several drinks at other nightclubs. He had a disturbing idea in mind and was determined to carry it out. He planned to find a woman to attack that night. Surveillance footage captured him at the bar entrance, where he was seen hugging women without their consent and trying to kiss them. He was particularly aggressive towards one of the staff, despite her clearly feeling uncomfortable, and he was eventually kicked out of the bar after 11 p.m. His inappropriate behavior was recorded by security cameras as he left. While walking along Fort Street towards the park, he noticed a woman hurrying by and began to follow her closely. Despite her attempts to evade him, he was outside waiting when she entered a store. After she carefully exited, Jordan trailed her again. However, when the woman finally entered her home, Jordan had to move on. At around 2 a.m., when the streets were fairly deserted, Jordan saw another woman walking. Surveillance footage shows him quickly approaching her, but two passers-by noticed something was wrong and helped the woman get home safely. Meanwhile, Zara and her friend decided to leave the bar at 2 a.m. The friend took a taxi, but Zara, thinking the distance was short and the weather was nice, opted to walk. She headed to Cranbrook Street, which was well lit and about a 10-minute walk from her home. It was then that Jordan spotted her. Jordan followed Zara for approximately 800 meters before seizing her. He approached her from behind, covered her mouth with one hand, and started to strangle her with the other before dragging her into a wooded path. There, he sexually assaulted and violently beat her. Jordan then returned home at around 2:30 a.m. On June 26, 2022, Zara was found on the pavement in Ilford, with her belongings scattered along the pavement. She was brutally beaten, partially stripped of her clothes and lying on the side of the road. A passerby performed CPR until an ambulance arrived, but sadly, Zara died in hospital at 9:58 a.m. on Sunday. During this time, Jordan was captured on the park's security camera. Police visited Zara's grandmother to ask her to identify her granddaughter in the bar's security camera footage. After she confirmed it was Zara, police explained to her what had happened. Later, the police conducted a thorough investigation in the area where Zara was found, collecting surveillance camera footage to track the movements of her attacker. This investigation, along with bloody fingerprints found near the scene, led them to identify Jordan as the suspect. They tracked his location using surveillance cameras and obtained images of the prime suspect. Police then arrested Jordan as he slept in his trailer. He did not resist arrest. Inside his trailer, police found blood-stained clothing and shoes. Despite hours of questioning, he remained silent. The crime prompted probation officer Justin Russell to point out several mistakes the probation department made in handling Jordan's case. He noted that Jordan had been a felon for 16 years, both in prison and after his release, which classified him as a dangerous offender. However, he did not receive the appropriate level of supervision. Had more drastic measures been taken, he could have been sent back to prison after missing scheduled meetings with his probation officer. September 30th was set for the trial, but it was postponed. Zara's family then held a vigil in her memory, along the route she was supposed to take home, symbolizing her unfinished journey. Many people dressed in white to attend the vigil. The event was attended by more than 120 organizations dedicated to women's rights and the fight against violence. During a preliminary hearing at East London Crown Court, forensic scientist Nadia Perso said that local police could have done more to locate Jordan before he attacked Zara. Nadia believed that the case deserved more media attention and suggested that the inquest should also consider the actions of prison staff and probation officers. Nadia estimated that the inquest would take about a month. On November 16, 2022, Jordan did not attend the hearing, despite being told he needed to attend via video link. However, he later pleaded guilty. Prosecutor Oliver Glasgow described him as unfit for bail, a view supported by Judge Chima Grove. Sentencing was adjourned until December 14, 2022. Jordan McSweeney was sentenced to 33 years in prison for the murder of Zara Alina. Jordan and his representatives appealed the verdict, but the sentence was upheld at 33 years. The case of Blanca Arellano. Blanca Olivia Arellano was born on February 6, 1971, in Hatiso Pan de Zaragoza, located in the northwest of the state of Mexico, Mexico. She was the youngest daughter of Dolores Gutierrez. She had two older sisters, Alejandra and Perla. Later, her sister gave birth to a baby girl named Carla Arellano. As an adult, Blanca successfully completed her education and earned a bachelor's degree in tourism. With her qualifications, she worked for several years at a travel agency. After that, her new job was as a taxi driver. In her free time, Blanca takes care of her health by cycling and going to the gym every morning. She believed that sports were essential to living a fulfilling and happy life. Although she was comfortable being on her own, she was rarely alone. She was fortunate to have close friends, Mercedes and Maru, with whom she often spent time. Three friends meet regularly to share stories of their days and confide in each other. Spirituality plays a very important role for Blanca. She organized spiritual master classes and led meditation rituals. In particular, she has become increasingly proficient in the topic of family constellations, a topic that interests many people. She has achieved professional qualifications in this area. Although these activities are not directly related to her main job, she saw them as a way to fulfill her desire. It is about helping others find harmony and healing. Blanca always wore an amulet ring called Atlas. Inside was engraved an infinity symbol, a symbol she really liked. She even crafted a matching bracelet with the same design. She cherishes her guardian ring, believing that it protects and gives her strength on her journey to find balance and peace in her soul. Because of the profound spiritual significance, so she never removed the ring. To her, the ring talisman was far more than just a piece of jewelry. In mid-2019, shortly before turning 50, Blanca developed an interest in online games and began spending a significant amount of time on the computer. Her niece, Carla, noticed this new hobby of hers and invited her to join a popular game. This game included a streaming platform where players could interact. One of the users was a man named Juan Pablo Jesus Villafuerte. In the game, players entered a virtual space, navigating obstacles and fighting for survival. Blanca became deeply engrossed in the game, especially because it allowed her to connect with people from around the globe. Before long, Blanca met Juan, the administrator of one of the virtual rooms. Juan, born in 1985, was from Arequipa, Peru. He had a twin brother and an older brother, Francisca Villafuerte, who worked as a lawyer. Juan had previously been married and had 2 children from that marriage. However, after his wife accused him of domestic violence, the relationship ended in divorce. In 2016, Juan decided to move to the city of Hua, located 2 hours by car from Lima, the country's capital. There, he enrolled in the medical faculty of the National University named after José Faustino Sánchez Carrion. Through the internet, Juan met Blanca, and they began communicating regularly. Over time, their conversations became frequent, helped both understand each other better. He trusted she so much that he made her the administrator of his virtual game room. On March 2020, Blanca spent most of her time playing online games and talking to Juan. They frequently made video calls and watched movies together late into the night. Juan, who plays guitar, often sends her videos and songs he has composed specifically for her. On her 50th birthday, he even wrote a heartfelt post on her social media page. From that moment, their relationship shifted from friendship to romance. Blanca, deeply in love, felt happiness, but she was afraid to tell her mother, sister, and friends about it. Eventually, she decided to open up and express her feelings. Juan then revealed his wish to meet her in person, which required him to travel to Mexico. However, he later admitted he didn't have enough money for the trip. Determined to make it happen, she told Juan that she would travel to Peru to make her dream come true. It was meeting him face to face. Blanca was prepared for anything. Given her challenging financial situation, she decided to sell some of her belongings, including a car, a bicycle, and various pieces of clothing. She quickly managed to gather the necessary funds. In July 2022, Blanca purchased a plane ticket to Lima. Shortly before her departure, she informed her family about her plans. Initially, her decision surprised her mother and sisters. However, after some thought, Alejandra, her older sister, acknowledged that Blanca was an adult and had the right to make her own choices in life. Ultimately, Alejandra simply wished her younger sister well. On July 27, 2022, Blanca boarded the plane, eager to reunite with Juan. A new chapter in her life began. By 2:45 a.m. the next day, she had arrived in Peru, where Juan greeted her at Jorge Chavez Airport. Their first stop was at the riverside, where Juan introduced Blanca to his family. After this gathering, they went to a room Juan had rented from Mrs. Magdi Loli Milan. However, there was a complication. The room was rented for one person only, so they had to keep Blanca a secret. One might think that Blanca would feel uncomfortable in a foreign country, where she knew no one, but she was entirely unbothered. She stayed confident in her plans, which included buying a car and becoming a taxi driver in Lima. Driving was what she did best, and she's sure she could continue her usual work in a new city. She regularly contacts Alejandra and Carla to keep her loved ones updated. She shared details about her daily life and the beautiful places she managed to visit. Everything was going perfectly for her, just as she had envisioned. Blanca was also happy to share her excitement about a new romance. She and Juan lived near the beach, a location she adored. She often recorded videos of the stunning ocean views and sent them to her family. To stay connected with Juan while he was at school, she purchased a local mobile phone. She told her mother and Carla about the phone, but, curiously, didn't share her new number with them. While this struck her family as a bit odd, everything else seemed fine, and they soon let it slip from their minds. While Juan was studying, Blanca spent time alone in her room attending online training sessions with her friend, Mercedes. It was an innocent activity, but Juan disapproved, so Blanca tried to keep it hidden until he got home. Then, she admitted to Mercedes that she was secretly participating in the training. This made Mercedes reflect on Juan's overly controlling behavior toward Blanca. She started thinking about it more and more, and over time, their relationship began to fall apart. At that time, Blanca had no job, no income either, so Juan was giving her $20 a week for expenses. Their arguments and disagreements became more frequent. Sometimes, Juan made excuses about having to attend classes so he wouldn't come home in the evening. In October 2022, Juan met a woman named Carmen Marin Castillo, who rented out a room for students in Northeast Lima. Immediately after that, he and Carmen fell in love. Soon, he started spending more and more time with Carmen. Feeling confident in his feelings for her, he decided to end things with Blanca. On November 6, 2022, around 2 p.m., Juan was in Lima and sent Blanca a message saying he would arrive in 3 hours. At approximately 6 p.m., he arrived at Mercedes in Deco Street, turned off the GPS on his phone, and went to meet Blanca. He attacked Blanca, striking her multiple times on the head and ribs. He continued beating her until she stopped breathing. Using his medical tools, he dismembered her body to make it easier to easily dispose of it. Realizing that Blanca could be identified by her tattoo, he removed it and distorted her fingerprints. The next morning, Juan started searching the internet for information on how to factory reset the phone Blanca used. Meanwhile, her loved ones grew anxious because they had stopped receiving messages from her. Carla is trying to find her aunt, Blanca. She reached out to Juan on social media to ask about her aunt's whereabouts. Juan claimed he had no information about Blanca's, but he explained that Blanca was unhappy with their relationship and had decided to go to Lima for a break. He added that, after realizing he couldn't give her the life she wanted, she planned to return to Mexico. Blanca's family found Juan's explanation puzzling. She had never mentioned her relationship with him nor expressed any desire to come back home. Distrusting the words of Juan, someone they barely knew, they decided to seek help from local residents. Together, they created a social media post about Blanca's disappearance, naming Juan as the only person she had been in close contact with in the unfamiliar city. Feeling desperate and powerless due to the vast distance between them, her family managed to file an official report with the prosecutor's office after several hours, officially declaring she missing. The Peruvian National Police promptly began an investigation. Meanwhile, Juan worked on creating an alibi. He called his university friend, Edson Amir Flores Aragon, claiming he felt unwell and needed some help. Around 4 p.m., Edson arrived at Juan's house, where Juan offered him a few drinks. After some time, Edson became heavily intoxicated. By approximately 6 p.m., Juan took he outside, ensuring the neighbors saw them together. The two then went to a store, where Juan purchased 8 garbage bags. Afterward, Juan said goodbye to Edson and returned home. Once alone, Juan placed Blanca's dismembered body into the garbage bags. Later that evening, he went to the beach near the port of Chorrillos to dispose of the remains. At the site, a canal flowed into the sea, and Juan completed his gruesome task before heading back home. On November 8, 2022, he left the house carrying a large backpack and went to a shopping center. There, he purchased various cleaning supplies, including a significant amount of chlorine. A surveillance camera captured him as he left the store. After returning home, Juan carefully cleaned the room, determined to erase all evidence and continue his life as if nothing had happened. 2 days later, on November 10, 2022, a group of fishermen were working at the beach port when they noticed a flock of birds circling over the shore. Curious, they approached the area and made a horrifying discovery. On the sand lay a head, a hand, and a body. Terrified, the fishermen immediately contacted the police. The police arrived at the scene, accompanied by representatives from the Prosecutor General's Office of Forensic Science. While examining the remains, they noticed something unusual, a ring on the victim's fingers. Investigators initially hypothesized that the woman had been killed elsewhere and her dismembered body had been moved to the beach. However, to confirm the identity of the victim, they needed to analyze the remains. The investigation soon hit a major obstacle. The victim's fingers had been mutilated, making it impossible to take fingerprints. This unusual detail led investigators to suspect that the victim might be a foreigner. During a press conference, Utah Police Chief Elvis Boss Billiards informed the media that the victim was believed to be a woman between 35 and 45 years old. Meanwhile, a rumor has emerged on social media that a Mexican tourist who visited Lima a few months ago has gone missing. As the investigation progressed, the national police linked the two cases. Unaware of the investigation's developments, Carla continued to locate her missing aunt, Blanca. On November 12, she once again appealed to the public for help. She accused Juan of being the main suspect in her aunt Blanca's disappearance, as he was the last person who had been with Blanca's in Peru. This accusation alarmed Juan, so he took defensive measures. Juan responded with a new story, filled with inconsistencies and untruths. He claimed that Blanca in Peru is homeless, and that he was merely helping her out of kindness. He denied having any romantic relationship with her. He even announced his intention to sue Blanca's family for defamation. Carla, however, firmly refuted all of his claims. From that point on, the two began a heated dispute on social media. Carla defended Blanca's reputation, while he tried to evade responsibility in every possible way. He then changed his profile picture and deleted all photos and other documents related to his relationship with Blanca. On November 13th, the Mexican prosecutor's office announces it will travel to the United States to speed up the investigation, gather necessary information, and summon the suspect to court. By November 14th, Juan had been officially identified as the primary suspect in Blanca's disappearance. During the interrogation, he said nothing and was uncooperative, leading investigators to search his home. His brother, Francisca, who is also his lawyer, is confused by his silence. But Francisca maintains that there is no romantic relationship between Juan and Blanca. That same day, Blanca's relatives contacted the police to share key information, reporting that Juan had personally gone to the airport to pick up Blanca when she arrives in Lima. The evidence continues to emerge, shedding light on the case. During analysis of the photos, investigators confirmed that the ring found on the beach belonged to Blanca. On November 15th, during a search of Juan's home, more important evidence was found. Inside the house, investigators found 3 suitcases, a Mexican flag, women's clothing, and hair. Using fluorescent lighting, traces of blood were found in the bedroom, bathroom, shower, on the mattress, and in a vase. Based on this evidence, authorities requested Juan's temporary arrest. Subsequent DNA tests confirmed that the evidence found in the house undeniably belonged to Blanca. Blanca's family, including Alejandra and Carla, were devastated upon hearing the news. They went to Peru with the intention of testifying against Juan in court. Once there, they faced the heartbreaking task of identifying Blanca's clothing. Meanwhile, Juan has run away with his lover, Carmen. In 2022, the Peruvian Supreme Court issued a preliminary arrest warrant for Juan. However, authorities were shocked to discover that he had escaped. Their concern grew when they remembered that Juan had a twin brother, which could complicate the investigation. Despite this, authorities soon located he at Carmen's house, in San Juan de Lurigancho. He was immediately taken to the National Criminal Investigation Department in Lima and detained for 72 hours. During the interrogation, Juan maintained his innocence. He claimed that he was not present at the time of the murder, and asserting that his relationship with Blanca was purely an online friendship. At the hearing, he portrayed himself as a wrongfully accused man, expressed sympathy for Blanca's family, and urged the police to find the real perpetrators. On November 22, 2022, a hearing was held where it was requested that Juan be placed in custody. Prosecutor Marcus said it would be difficult to convince people of Juan's involvement in Blanca's murder. But he stressed that if Juan were released, he would likely try to escape again. The court approved the request, and Juan was sent to Carquin prison in Gua, where he was to remain for at least 9 months. Before the trial concluded, he filed an appeal. However, his lawyer did not attend the hearing. The judge rejected the appeal, stating that sufficient evidence had been gathered to prove Juan's involvement in the crimes and reminding him of his false testimony. During this time, Blanca's family tried their best to bring her body home in order to hold a funeral for her. Initially, this seemed impossible, as further testing on the remains might have been required as the investigation continued. Finally, in February 2023, Blanca's remains were sent to Mexico. Her family entrusted the remains to a funeral home for cremation and announced they would temporarily keep the ashes. After justice is served, they plan to take her ashes to the church so she can rest in peace forever. Meanwhile, Juan remained in prison awaiting his trial, scheduled for August 2023. During the trial, the prosecutor's office, the defense, and several witnesses presented testimony. The accused, Juan Pablo Jesus Villafuerte, was found guilty, and the court proceedings moved to the stage of delivering the verdict. On September 12, 2023, a virtual court session held by the Supreme Court of Lima announced the decision. Present at the session were Juan, who was in prison, his lawyer, Fernando, and one of Blanca's sisters. In his statement, the judge said that although the prosecutor's office accused Juan of organ trafficking, the complaint was dismissed due to lack of evidence. However, the judge confirmed that Juan had used his medical expertise to dismember Blanca's body. Additional evidence also revealed that her personal belongings, including her passport, driver's license, and mobile phone, had been found in Juan's house. Thus, Juan Pablo Jesus Villafuerte was convicted of the murder of Blanca Arellano and sentenced to 35 years in prison. Furthermore, he was fined $1,000, payable to Blanca's family. After the verdict was announced, Carla, Blanca's niece, expressed her dissatisfaction. She argued that the 35-year sentence did not reflect the severity and cruelty of what Juan had done. She believes that such a sentence would allow rapists and murderers of women chance to reintegrate into society, something she finds unacceptable. The case of Lauren McCluskey. Since she was a child, Lauren McCluskey has been a very talented person. She dances, sings, and is an excellent track and field athlete. She has won many medals and awards. Eventually, she received an offer from the University of Utah and left her hometown of Pullman, Washington, to start a new life in Salt Lake City. At the university, she participates in athletics competitions, including the 100-meter dash, hurdles, high jump, shot put, long jump, javelin throw, and 800-meter run. Her talent made her one of the standout athletes on the university team. Besides, she also studies well in the communication department and makes friends with many people. However, in September 2018, her life took a tragic turn. On a Friday evening, Lauren and her friends decided to go dancing and have drinks at a small club near the University of Utah. During the evening, a man caught her attention. As the night wound down, he introduced himself as Sean Phillips, saying he worked as a security guard at the club and was also a student at Salt Lake Community College. He was 28 years old. Despite their age difference, but they quickly found common ground. His charm and interest in her drew her in, and they exchanged phone numbers, planning to meet again the following day to spend more time together. Lauren felt very happy to meet Sean. She even called her mother, Jill McCluskey, to tell her about him. Sean gives her flowers at dinner, tries to be charming and gently proposes. He was tall, muscular, handsome, and very sociable guy. He quickly found common ground with Lauren, an energetic and friendly girl. He often stayed overnight in her dorm room, and she even let him borrow her car. However, some concerning behaviors began to surface. Initially, Sean encouraged Lauren to invite her friends to their gatherings, but then, he started telling her how to dress, usually in a t-shirt and jeans. When she was with her friends, he would constantly call, asking where she was, who she was with, and when she would return. If she didn't respond immediately, he would become upset. Lauren explained to friends that Sean's behavior stemmed from insecurities caused by past relationships and believed that over time, this would improve. Sean begins to explain to Lauren the importance of being careful around others and always being prepared for unfortunate situations that may arise. He bought her a can of pepper spray and insisted she carry it everywhere. He also took her to a shooting range and asked her to purchase a gun for him. Around this time, Lauren cut off all communication with her friends and spent all her time outside of school with Sean, focusing solely on training with him. Concerned, her friends reached out to the dorm staff where she lived. The staff, already uneasy about Sean's frequent presence in the dorms, grew even more alarmed when they discovered that he was tracking Lauren's movements on campus, monitoring her comings and goings. It became evident that he was not just overly jealous, but was attempting to control and manipulate Lauren's life. Something was clearly wrong. As it turned out, Sean was not who he had introduced himself to be. One day, Lauren accidentally saw a photo of his ID card and learned the truth. Sean Phillips was not a 28-year-old college student or the kind, trustworthy person he pretended to be. His real name was Melvin Sean Rowland, and in fact he is 38 years old, born in 1981. He was skilled at fabricating stories and concealing his true identity. Investigators later uncovered several women who had been deceived by his lies in different ways. Unknowingly, Lauren had become one of his victims. After seeing his ID card, she begins to realize the truth about him. Melvin's true identity came to light on October 5th, when Lauren returned to her home in Pullman, Washington. She confided in a friend, sharing everything that had happened. The friend suggested searching online for information about Melvin Sean Rowland. The search revealed alarming details. Melvin was a sex offender. In 2004, he was convicted of luring a minor and attempting to forcibly harass her. He spent 9 years in state prison and was released on parole in September 2013. Realizing the truth, Lauren knew she had to end the relationship with him. Lauren returns to college in Utah and makes plans to break up with Melvin. On October 9th, she called and asked him to come over. When he arrived, the planned breakup didn't happen, and he stayed the night in Lauren's room. She later told her friends that Melvin had apologized for lying about himself and explained an incident involving a false age claimed by a girl at a fraternity party. He insisted that the other allegations against him were untrue. Lauren's friends were doubtful of his story and urged her to end the relationship, which she did the following day. Afterward, Lauren called her mother to explain what had happened. She mentioned that she planned to meet Melvin that evening to get her car back. Her mother, Jill, grew very concerned about the situation. Worrying about her daughter's safety, Jill contacted campus police to inform them and asked them to keep an eye on Lauren while she got her car back. Jill felt uneasy and deeply anxious. Jill dreading the idea of Melvin, who seemed to bring trouble into Lauren's life, being anywhere near she. Lauren was able to pick up her car without any issues, and both she and Melvin carried on with their lives. After that, she had a short period of peace. She focused on her studies and began to rebuild her routine. However, this peace is soon broken by messages sent from unknown phone numbers, all referencing Melvin. Concerned, she contacted the police, leaving a message with the operator, but no one got back to her that day. Then a message arrived from Melvin's number, saying he was fine, but hinting that something strange was happening. Soon after, messages from anonymous numbers continued to arrive, affirmed that they were in possession of sensitive photos of Lauren and Melvin. The sender demanded $10,000, threatening to release the photos online if they do not receive the money. On the morning of October 13th, Melvin emailed Lauren, revealing that he was also being blackmailed. He advised her to pay the money, so she sent $10,000 to the unknown blackmailer. However, she began to suspect that Melvin himself might be behind the blackmail rather than an unknown party. Feeling insecure, she contacted the University of Utah police. The dispatcher forwarded her complaint to Miguel Dasso, a University of Utah police officer. Wanting to address the situation directly, Lauren and her friend walked across campus to speak with the officer in person. When they arrived, they met with the police and told the whole story, including giving Melvin's name and that he was a sex offender. Police believe this was a hoax and that Lauren may have made up the story about the death threat. Lauren and her friend believed that they had taken the necessary steps and that the problem would soon be resolved. Unfortunately, almost no action was taken. Officer Miguel received copies of the messages and images involved, even adding one of the photos to his personal collection. He later bragged to another officer that he could now view it whenever he wanted. Lauren received no follow-up from the university police despite her repeated calls to the station, during which she explained to the dispatcher that she was being blackmailed again. In October, near Lauren's dorm, Melvin was spotted loitering in the parking lot, wearing a suit. About 45 minutes later, she returned to her dorm after track practice. At the time, no one knew who Melvin was. She entered the dorm and went upstairs. Shortly afterward, Melvin, now dressed as Deadpool, approached the dorm door. He later claimed he knew Lauren had called the police, leading her to suspect that someone at the police department had informed him about the situation. Lauren had forgotten that a few weeks ago, she had used Melvin's phone to log in and check her email. This gave him access to her communications with the police, friends, and family without her realizing it. She contacted the Salt Lake City police, hoping they could connect her with another department for assistance. However, under the jurisdictional rules, police said they were not of much help, as their jurisdiction was limited to campus. This also prevents Officer Miguel from taking action outside of campus. Additionally, some have suggested that Lauren's assumption that someone in the police department had leaked information to Melvin may make her paranoid. Phone records revealed that she called both police departments multiple times over several days, desperately seeking a solution. On October 22nd, the situation took a dire turn. CCTV footage showed Melvin leaving his apartment at 6 a.m. He rented a car from his neighbor and drove to the parking lot in front of Lauren's dorm, arriving at 9 a.m. He walked toward the building just as she was leaving her dorm. Around that time, she received a text message, supposedly from Deputy Chief McLennan of the University Police, asking her to come to the station to review evidence. Sensing something was off, she ignored the message and instead went to meet with a counselor, who had been helping her deal with the breakup and its aftermath. At that time, Melvin was in the same building as Lauren. He was carrying a small suitcase. He was looking for she but couldn't find her, so he went to her dorm instead. There, he managed to gain access. Once inside, he spoke with a group of 4 students. Over time, 3 of them left, leaving 1 student behind. The remaining student later told police that Melvin asked if he wanted to see what was inside the suitcase. Inside was a .40 caliber Beretta pistol and a full magazine. He even let the student handle the gun before leaving. Meanwhile, Lauren had finished her evening class and was preparing to return to her dorm. It had been a difficult week, so she decided to call her parents and take a short walk across campus while talking to them. At the same time, Melvin left the dorm, intending to intercept her on her usual route back. As Lauren walked, she told her parents about her day, and they listened closely. Suddenly, they heard her scream as Melvin began chasing her. Her father, Matthew, immediately called 911. Melvin grabbed Lauren, forced her into the car with a gun and pushed her into the back seat. Then, he shooting her 7 times at close range. After opening fire, he drove through the parking lot, crossed the bridge and continued straight to the nearest subway station in Salt Lake. There, he waited calmly at a bus stop and made a phone call, having already arranged for someone to pick him up. A woman eventually arrived, and he got into her car. The 2 went out for dinner and took a walk around a nearby building, attempting to appear as though they were casually spending time together, likely to create an alibi for the time of the murder. Meanwhile, police began searching the area. This side, Lauren's parents are dying to know what's going on with their daughter. Students and volunteers began searching west of the North Medical Tower. A team of 6 officers, along with a police dog, joined the search, moving north. Eventually, they discovered Lauren's body inside a silver vehicle. Police cordoned off the crime scene and initiated a nationwide manhunt for Melvin. Authorities had been repeatedly warned that he posed a danger to Lauren, but by the time they acted, it was too late. Now, their only focus was capturing her killer, Melvin. At this time, Melvin was still on the run. He rushed into Trinity Church in Salt Lake City to seek refuge. Police followed him into the building. They also knew that he had weapons and ready to fight back. They searched the church room by room until a single gunshot rang out. Melvin ended his life. When officers found him, the manhunt ended. However, the tragedy was far from over. Lauren, an innocent young woman, was murdered, causing people to demand clarity on the matter. Why had no one taken even the simplest measures to prevent this? How could someone who had pleaded for help and provided all the necessary information be so blatantly ignored? The university had failed to conduct even a basic background check on Melvin. Why hadn't they done so? If they had looked into his history and contacted his probation officer, he will be sent back to prison soon. He has been incarcerated for violating the terms of his probation and has a history of making provocative statements during his parole hearings. When reporters asked Melvin's parole officer if he could have been sent back to prison, the officer made it clear Melvin would have been arrested immediately if the police department informed them of his actions. Officer Miguel Dasso has left the University of Utah Police Force to join the Logan Police Department. However, after his actions came to light, he was promptly fired. Under state obscenity laws, he faces charges for mishandling evidence and showing it to another officer. These charges were later dropped because a data analysis of his phone showed insufficient evidence. Although the charges were dismissed, his actions caused significant harm. What is particularly troubling is that the district attorney has decided not to proceed with the case against him. The case also raises questions about where Melvin got the gun he used. As a parolee and convicted felon, he was legally prohibited from purchasing or possessing a firearm. Investigations revealed that he acquired the gun through a friend, who was also a convicted felon. The friend had his girlfriend purchase the gun on Melvin's behalf. If the gun had not been handed to he, Lauren would likely still be alive. The McCluskey family sued the University of Utah and its police force, accusing them of being irresponsible and incompetent in handling Lauren's request for help. The lawsuits, initially seeking $56 million, were resolved through settlements. The case of Sonia Ivanova. Sonia, a 19 years old, a Native American resident, grew up in a small village about 180 kilometers southeast of Nome, Alaska, USA. She dreamed of living and studying in Hawaii, but she needed to earn money first. Determined to make a change, she decided to take action. Along with her best friend, Timer, she moved to Nome, where she got a job as a hospital administrator. Timer found work as a hotel receptionist. They shared an apartment and felt comfortable in their new surroundings. Without a car, they walked everywhere. Sonia's family was concerned for her safety because there had been incidents of Native American residents disappearing in Alaska. They were worried because she was too naive and gullible, making her vulnerable to deception. On Sunday, August 10, 2003, Sonia and Timer went to a bar to relax with friends. They stayed until 11 p.m., then left. Timer went to spend the night with other friends since she had to work in 6 hours. Sonia, having a day off, decided to enjoy a walk in the summer rain, which she found comforting and warm. As they said goodbye, they didn't realize that it would be the last time they would see each other. At 5 a.m., Timer came home to get ready for work. She was surprised to see that Sonia was not sleeping at home. At first, she thought Sonia might have slept over at other friends' houses. Throughout the day, she tried contacting Sonia multiple times, but all attempts failed, which made her worried. She decided to call Sonia's sister, Christina, and Christina's husband, Tim, but they also didn't know where Sonia was. Tuesday came, and Sonia still hadn't returned home, increasing Timer's anxiety to the point of panic. She remembered that Sonia never went anywhere without makeup. If Sonia had planned to spend 2 days with friends, Sonia will definitely stop by the house to pick up mascara and lipstick. After finishing her work shift at 5:15 p.m., she contacted the police to report Sonia missing. The police Reburn was skeptical, he thinking Sonia might be with friends, and asked Timer to wait. None of the people interviewed knew where Sonia had gone. Christina and Tim were also actively searching. They searched every part of the city and questioned everyone about Sonia's whereabouts. Their next lead was a young man named Kyun, who was a friend of Sonia and whom she apparently liked, but they couldn't locate him either. All their hopes were placed on the police. However, initially, the known police were not interested in searching for Sonia. It was only after the hospital where Sonia worked reported her disappearance that investigators seriously took on the case. Reburn questioned Timer once more. According to her, there is no problem between them. Sonia seemed happy. There were no arguments, and if they ever had misunderstandings, they would talk it out and quickly reconcile. Then, she joined the search operation with many volunteers and, along with her friend, searched for Sonia on the outskirts of the city. A moment later, the police received a call. Timer was hopeful, thinking that Sonia had been found. Indeed, Sonia was found, but the news brought no joy. A few hours earlier, a fireman noticed fresh tire tracks on a deserted road and decided to investigate. Soon, he was at the police station and tell everything. The officer Brand asked the fireman to show the location, and together they went to an abandoned gold mine. What the officer saw there shocked him. Although he couldn't see the woman's face, he immediately knew it was Sonia. When he learned what happened to Sonia, Timer felt extremely painful. Even after 20 years, the pain still lingers in her heart. It was extreme sadness, hopelessness, and anger. She was primarily angry with herself, believing that if she hadn't left Sonia alone to visit her friends for the night, Sonia might still be alive. Meanwhile, the investigation into the terrible murder began. Due to lack of skills and equipment, local detectives had difficulty investigating the case. So they turned to the Alaska Bureau of Investigation, ABI, for help, which specializes in investigating complex crimes such as murder. When investigators arrived, they immediately secured the scene. They using road barriers and shelter tents, fearing that precipitation might destroy important evidence. During their investigation, they discovered blood traces that had been driven over by a car. So, they suspected the perpetrator might have been responsible. Upon closer inspection, detectives noticed an unusual detail about the tire marks. One tread was different from the other three. This suggested that the suspect's vehicle had two different types of tires. Additionally, they found blue paint stains, likely from a vehicle. Because the paint stains are quite high above the ground, investigators theorized that the vehicle could have been an SUV or a truck. Further investigation revealed that Sonia had not been raped. There was no DNA evidence on her body or at the crime scene. This brutal murder has left the town's residents bewildered. And they do not know who is responsible. Sonia, a friendly girl, had no known enemies and hadn't been in conflicts with anyone. Officer Reburn revisited the list of Sonia's friends and was particularly interested in Daniel Ango, also known as Kyun. Tim and Christina had tried to reach him during the search for Sonia, but he did not respond. Police were aware of Kyun because previously, his ex-girlfriend had filed a complaint against him for mistreating her. He was considered a suspect, not only because of his temper but also because he owned a blue truck, had different tires. When investigators examined the vehicle, they discovered a blue awning with blood stains inside, as well as blood on white sneakers and one of the 3 guns in the truck. The tires were tested with a special chemical, revealing additional blood stains. Kyun was brought in for questioning. He stated that he hadn't seen Sonia for 2 weeks. He also was out of town hunting with friends when she disappeared. Despite this, detectives decided to investigate further. Later, he explained that the blood in his car came from a hare he accidentally hit. He said he had to put the hare out of its misery, but then suggested it might have been a porcupine he shot while hunting. With that, the interrogation ended, and he left the police station calmly. Timer and Christina are unhappy with the police investigation and feel it is stalling. A week after Sonia's body was discovered, they went to the Nome police station and attached a photo of her to the wall outside. An officer came out, told them to leave, and removed the photo. Despite this, Timer showed up at the station every morning at 8 a.m., standing there to demand answers. The public did not know that investigators had identified Kyun as the prime suspect and were not investigating anyone else. However, the detectives were mistaken. The blood found in Kyun's truck was not human, the tire tracks at the crime scene didn't match his vehicle, and the blue paint traces didn't match his truck's color. Kyun's story was true, and the investigation was halted. Only 2 of the 8 local police officers are still actively investigating the case, Officer Reburn, who had received information from Timer about Sonia, and Officer Brian, who was the first to arrive at the crime scene. However, Brian was unhappy with the investigation because he had been assigned to the night shift, which prevented him from conducting interrogations. Red Bear, according to Brian, didn't seem to take his job seriously and was slow to share new information with him. Brian is determined to find out the truth. He decided to review the case file during his night shifts. Suddenly, he noticed a message from a woman. She mentioned that she had seen Sonia while Sonia was missing. She saw Sonia get into the car. This was new information for Brian, and he quickly sought out the woman. He had a detailed conversation with her. The woman's name was Florence. She was surprised that no one had contacted or interviewed her. She explained that she had been standing outside her house with her sister, smoking, when Sonia walked by and greeted them. Then, a car passed by and blocked Sonia's path. He said something to her, after which she got into the car. They drove off in the direction where Sonia's body was found a few days later. Officer Brian thanks Florence and he begins to think about her statement. He was convinced that the ABA agents needed to return to the city and continue the investigation. One detail from Florence's story unsettled Brian. She had seen a sticker on the car Sonia entered, which read Nome Police Department. This suggested that one of his colleagues might be Sonia's killer. He needed to process this information. The ABA team, led by Eric Burette, returned to Nome to investigate Florence's testimony further. Eric informs the group about 2 policemen who were on duty at the station the night Sonia went missing, Matt Ons and Stan Ulker. At that point, both of whom had been with the Nome Police Department for 3 years. There were several people involved in the case, and everyone was required to go to the central office of Polly Angie for questioning and a lie detector test. However, something strange occurred. A couple of weeks after the crime, an officer discovered that a service car was missing. That same night, a search operation was launched. At 2:51, Matt called his colleagues to report that he had found the car in an abandoned area, near where the body was hidden. 2 minutes later, he called again, he saying, "There were shots there." Several police officers rushed to the scene, but they found nothing unusual. Police found the missing car in a safe place, dark place. Matt admitted that he was terrified when he heard the shots and thought about his 4-year-old son possibly growing up without a father. He said that perhaps he was not cut out for police work. The officers inspected the stolen car and immediately noticed the broken window on the driver's side. Next, they saw an envelope on the driver's seat, amidst the glass shards. Inside the envelope was a letter, in which the stranger expressed his hatred for the police. They claimed that stealing the car was easy and that Sonia was just in the wrong place at the wrong time, implying that it was not her fault. The person mentioned that Sonia mistook him for a policeman. He warned them to be careful, saying that he was watching their every move. He threatens that if they leave him alone, he would leave them alone, but if they came too close, he would shoot them in the head. The unknown person not only left this threatening letter in the car but also included evidence in the envelope to remove any doubt that he was the one who killed Sonia. Along with the note, police found a membership card for the fitness center Sonia used to visit. How did the criminal steal the police car? It was later discovered that official cars were almost always unlocked, and the keys were often left in the ignition. Therefore, stealing the car is not difficult. Initially, two officers, Stan and Matt, were questioned. Their testimonies were almost identical. That evening, they were called to a domestic violence incident. The man who caused the incident attacked them, then he was arrested and taken to the police station. Stan stayed in the office to handle paperwork, while Matt patrolled the streets alone. This occurred between 1 o'clock and 1:30 a.m. Matt reported hearing gunshots, but he spent an hour trying to locate their source without success. His shift ended at 7 a.m., and he went home. Both officers, Stan and Matt, stated they did not see Sonia that night and were not involved in her death. Since their stories matched, a lie detector test was used to further investigate the incident. When asked, did they offer Sonia a ride on August 11, 2003? Both individuals answered no. They gave the same response when questioned about her murder. Further questions focused on Matt's sex life, leaving him confused. It seemed he didn't understand why these questions were being asked. At that time, Matt didn't know that Eric, the lead investigator, was also in the room and is keeping an eye on him. Eric had learned from colleagues that Matt was a typical person, although he didn't always follow the rules. Matt preferred night shifts and often volunteered for them. Occasionally, he invited friends to ride in the patrol car with him, despite repeated warnings from management not to do so. In March 2003, Matt was accused of using his squad car to meet women. He allegedly having sex with them while on duty. Unlike many who use Tinder and similar apps, he had his own method. He would drive slowly in the patrol car, approach women, and offer them rides. When confronted with these allegations, he denied them, and the investigation continued. The city discovered that Matt's personal life was troubled. In a custody battle in court, he is trying to sue his wife for custody of their 4-year-old son. The child currently lives with his mother, but the boy also visits his father because his parents are separated. On the morning of August 12th, Matt called his wife to say he couldn't pick up their son because he had to work on a missing girl case, which might take a long time. His wife confirmed this to the FBI. When asked if she was sure the phone conversation took place on August 12th, she affirmed with certainty, because that day was her birthday. At that point, when Sonia had not yet been reported missing, then how could Matt know she was missing? On October 25th, he was arrested and charged with Sonia's murder. This news didn't surprise everyone. 6 women reported to the police, accusing Matt of not only failing to maintain order and security on the streets, but also posing a threat to many people. They felt relieved after his arrest. One woman claimed that when she was drunk, he detained and assaulted her in the squad car. She didn't report it immediately, fearing disbelief due to her intoxication. 2 other complaints were filed against him, but they were not properly addressed. Investigators have no evidence to prove Matt was involved in the murder. They don't know where Sonia's clothes are or where he hid the weapon. And they found nothing suspicious in the patrol cars. The detectives worried that their information wouldn't convince the jury of Matt's guilt. However, they were about another lead, a hunting camp about 30 kilometers from the city. He frequently visited this camp, and a witness saw him burning his gloves there. If true, he might have destroyed other evidence at the camp. At there, investigators thoroughly examined the ashes. Finally, they found an important piece of evidence: burned shoes with laces bearing the imprint of the shoe manufacturer Schumacher. Sonia wore shoes of this brand. The ashes were collected and taken to Nome. Over several days, detectives searched for more evidence. They soon found several more pairs of shoes, parts of a bra, and a button inscribed with LT. Sonia's sister confirmed that the button belonged to Sonia's clothes. A mailbox key was found in the hallway, and it turned out to be the key to Matt's mailbox. Then, a police department employee suggested where the crime weapon might be. Investigators suspected the weapon could be a .22 caliber Jennings pistol, which was indeed found in the storage facility. According to the officers, Matt took it for his criminal activities and later returned it. Unfortunately, this could not be proven due to a lack of evidence. 2 months after Matt's arrest, Sonia's relatives and ABA employees encountered a new issue. He hired an experienced lawyer and was released on bail with his help. The residents of Nome were shocked that the killer was freely roaming their small town, but they were powerless to stop it. Matt's trial began on January 18, 2005, but after 40 hours of jury deliberations, the jury still failed to reach a verdict. The prosecution's evidence was not convincing, and Matt walked out of court again a free man. In the second trial, the prosecution presented evidence to the jury, including Florence's testimony about seeing Sonia get into a car labeled Nome Police Department, Matt's wife's testimony about Sonia's disappearance shortly before Sonia was officially reported missing. Traces of Sonia's clothing found along with the key to a box, and the murder weapon that was stolen and later returned. However, Matt's lawyers challenged all these points. They argued that Matt's wife had likely misremembered the date. They also contended that the traces of clothing and the gun were not connected to Sonia's murder. Because of this conflict, the jury could not reach a consensus on whether Matt was guilty or not, so he was acquitted at trial. This case has made the public extremely indignant. Many believe Matt was guilty of the crime, but he managed to escape justice. Investigator Eric, however, found a new lead. As astonishing as it seems, this is indeed what happened. Eric's neighbor said Charlotte, a friend of Matt's who was staying at his house, shared the news. It turns out Charlotte found a membership card in Matt's bedroom. If so, then this incident may be related to Sonia's murder. Eric asked the neighbor whether Charlotte told him about the discovery before or after the police car was found. It turned out Charlotte mentioned it before the theft. This confirmed Eric's suspicion that Matt stole the car himself to distract the investigation. But who found the patrol car? Matt stated that gunshots were heard 2 minutes after the car was located. That night, Matt left without his service weapon or flashlight. This raised the possibility that he might have planted Sonia's fitness club membership card on the front seat. Charlotte was called as a witness during the second court hearing and questioned again. When asked if she saw Sonia's card or wallet on Matt, she denied it. Despite being under oath, her answers didn't change. Investigators, however, suspected that she might be withholding such information. They were prepared and presented evidence in court of an earlier conversation between the officer and Charlotte. In that discussion, she admitted she had seen Sonia's ID or membership card along with other personal belongings. Charlotte eventually decided to testify in court. Her testimony proved to be crucial. Matt Ons was found guilty on all charges and sentenced to 101 years in prison. This tragic incident has left a stain on the city, causing people to lose faith in law enforcement. Sonia's family chose to hold an open casket funeral, allowing everyone to approach and say their final goodbyes. However, justice prevailed, and Matt Ons received the punishment he truly deserved. The case of Hannah Payne. On the evening of May 7, 2019, a major traffic jam occurred on the road near Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport in Atlanta, Georgia. At the same time, a truck carrying batteries caught fire on nearby I-285, causing several access points to be closed. This caused frustration and anger among many motorists. Terry Robinson, a correctional officer in Georgia who was off duty, was driving on Clark Howell Highway when he saw a red pickup truck run a red light. The truck nearly collided with a black SUV before crashing straight into a semi-truck. The semi-truck driver, Stanley Kimball, managed to escape his cab without injury, as did the SUV driver, Hannah Payne, who was unhurt and pulled over to the side of the road. Terry and 21-year-old Hannah both called 911 to report the accident. After the crash, Kenneth's pickup truck began to smoke from a fuel leak, and he initially appeared uninjured. He got out of the truck and walked around it, presumably trying to assess the damage. After waiting 20 minutes without seeing the police arrive, Terry became concerned about Kenneth's actions. Despite the significant damage to his truck, Kenneth was able to start it and drive away from the scene. Terry then asked Hannah to take a photo of Kenneth's truck's license plate. Hannah Payne, the young driver of the SUV, quickly got behind the wheel and pursued Kenneth. While driving, she called 911 again to report that the man involved in the accident might be drunk. She mentioned her intention to catch up with him to take a picture of his license plate. The police urged her to stop the chase and put her safety first, but Hannah was determined to follow him. She caught up with Kenneth and gave the police his car details. Despite this, she continued the chase, telling the police that she could not let a drunk driver cause another accident and refused to return to the scene of the original accident. Hannah then parked her SUV on the street at the intersection of Forest Peak and Road, about a mile from the accident site. After stopping the car, Hannah got out and walked toward Kenneth's pickup truck. She approached the driver's side door while recording their conversation on her phone. During their argument, her phone fell to the ground. In a moment of extreme tension, Hannah pulled out her registered handgun and shot Kenneth. She then picked up the phone and called 911 again, claiming that Kenneth pulled the trigger while she was holding the gun. She asked the police to come quickly. Police Ritchie of the Clayton County Sheriff's Department arrived on the scene and heard bystanders shouting that a woman next to an SUV had just shot a man during an argument. Hannah's black shirt was torn, and she changed into a pink hoodie while waiting for police. She quickly handed her gun to the police while they attempted to pull Kenneth out of the car and administer first aid. Hannah began talking to witnesses to their fight, hoping they would stay and tell police that Kenneth had attacked her and opened fire. Kenneth was rushed to hospital by ambulance, but sadly he could not be saved. Meanwhile, Hannah was placed in the back seat of a police car. Police then began investigating the incident on the busy rush hour road. Many witnesses saw what happened from different angles, and they provided the police with the information they needed. Hannah was quick to share her account of how the shot was fired. Hannah had been working in property management since graduating high school. Her job involved leasing properties, showing them to potential tenants, and collecting rent. In this role, she frequently met with strangers, sometimes in vacant buildings, and often handled large amounts of cash. This was her rationale for carrying a gun. In Georgia, residents can obtain a permit to carry a firearm only at the age of 21, which Hannah was at the time of the incident. Kenneth was 62 years old when he was killed. The truck he was driving belonged to his father. And inside, police discovered various tools and items he used as a mechanic. Police also found a set of needles and syringes for injecting insulin, which was crucial since witness accounts suggested he might have had diabetes or was experiencing insulin shock. The Clayton County Medical Examiner could not determine Kenneth's blood sugar level at the time of the accident because it naturally decreases after death. However, key witness Terry Robinson, who worked at a state medical facility, told the police that Kenneth was acting like a diabetic. Terry did not think Kenneth was drunk, but was convinced that Kenneth was diabetic and needed urgent medical attention. Kenneth's wife, Christine, later supported this diagnosis, saying she believed he had suffered an acute diabetic attack and may have been trying to drive himself to Southern Regional Medical Center when the accident occurred. She asserted that her husband would not have simply left the scene and was actually trying to get to the hospital. A few hours after the incident, Hannah spoke with police from Clayton County. She recounted the accident on Clark Hole Highway that led her to chase the suspect. Hannah explained that she had approached Kenneth to persuade him to go back to the scene of the accident, following the instructions from the 911 dispatcher. When he crossed into oncoming traffic to turn right, she saw a chance to make him stop. Hannah mentioned that she walked towards him while holding her cell phone, telling him she was currently on the line with police. At that moment, her phone fell to the ground. He then grabbed her shirt and ripped it off. Kenneth said he had something for her, which scared Hannah. In response, she pulled out a gun and threatened him. This made the situation worse, and at one point Kenneth tried to knock the gun out of her hand, leading to a struggle. Hannah reported that the gun moved, sometimes pointing the barrel at her and sometimes at Kenneth. Then, a shot was fired. Hannah told the police that she did not remember whether she had her finger on the trigger during the struggle and continued to insist that it was Kenneth who fired the shot. The gun had a double safety feature. First, the user needed to squeeze the handle to activate a switch on top of the weapon, and only then could they put their finger on the trigger to fire. Hannah mentioned that she didn't put her finger on the trigger because she was aware of how the safety worked. She believes that during the struggle, the gun may have spun, allowing anyone to release the safety catch and pull the trigger. Tiana McKinney, a witness, was driving a coworker home at the time. They saw Hannah's SUV. After noticing that the SUV had cut off Kenneth's pickup truck in the opposite lane, leading to a heated argument, she called 911. Tiana's account contradicts Hannah's story. She said that Hannah cut off Kenneth's truck, then Hannah got out of her SUV, pulled out a gun, and threatened him. Tiana wasn't the only one who noticed Hannah was the attacker. Cameron Williams captured a short video of the confrontation between Hannah and Kenneth. The video shows Hannah holding the gun, walking away from her car, and then bending down to the ground. Cameron thought that Hannah was bending down to pick up her dropped phone at that moment. Clayton County Police documented her injuries. After questioning her, they discovered scratches on the back of Hannah's neck where she said Kenneth grabbed her and pulled her forward. There was also a red, swollen area on her right wrist where Kenneth allegedly grabbed her. Hannah also mentioned a bruise on her lip, and her hand also appeared to be injured. While waiting for the police at the station, Hannah nervously bit her fingernails, claiming that they had broken during the struggle. When the police searched the car, they found several items that could support Hannah's claim that Kenneth had reached for a weapon inside. Among the clutter in the car, they found a flashlight and, most notably, a knife. However, only Hannah accused Kenneth of trying to get something to harm her, raising doubts about the reliability of her testimony. As a result, an arrest warrant was issued for Hannah Payne, which includes charges of murder, aggravated assault, and false imprisonment for Hannah stopping Kenneth's truck and pointing a gun at it. She also faces a charge of possession of a weapon during the commission of a crime, which could result in a life sentence with an additional 10 years in prison. Hannah's attorney, Matt Tucker, described Hannah as a good and responsible citizen. He argued that she pulled the gun to protect her life. Furthermore, he said that the state intentionally altered 911 recordings from the incident to remove portions of the audio that could support Hannah's testimony. Hannah was eventually granted bail and placed under house arrest, where she wore an ankle monitor and had a curfew of 9 p.m. Her release on bail upset the Kenneth family and many others who believed her actions were racially motivated. The case received widespread media coverage because it involved a white woman who shot a black man and was granted bail twice. Hannah's family later gave an interview, criticizing how the media portrayed her as someone very different from who she truly is. Hannah's parents expressed their condolences to the family of the Kenneth, while emphasizing that Hannah is a kind person who treats everyone equally, without regard for race or other differences. Hannah's trial was postponed first to 2020 and then to 2021. Even after 3 years, the trial has yet to take place. Kenneth's brother, Keith, contacted an organization that addresses issues of racism, seeking support. In his letter, he described Hannah as a cold-blooded criminal who refused to provide timely medical help to his brother, leading to his death. The accusation quickly went viral on social media. By spring 2022, Hannah remained under house arrest, and her trial date had not been established. During this time, the NAACP released a statement expressing deep concern about the slow progress of the case and urged for a quick resolution. A trial date was eventually scheduled for later that year. But the case experienced an unusual delay when defense attorney Matt Tucker did not show up in court. The judge remarked that this was not the first time she had issues with this lawyer, so she canceled the hearing and announced her intention to file a complaint against him with the Bar Association. Matt Tucker later informed the court that he was unable to attend the hearing due to having suffered a stroke and being hospitalized. In December 2023, nearly 4 years after Kenneth's murder, the much-anticipated hearing finally occurred. Clayton County Prosecutor Bonnie Smith presented evidence about the day of the shooting. Witnesses who were present at the scene also shared their accounts of that day. Since the incident unfolded rapidly, their testimonies varied and sometimes conflicted. One witness claimed that Hannah drew a gun as soon as she exited her car, while others asserted she only did so after she and Kenneth had already begun arguing. Despite these inconsistencies, the witnesses agreed on key details. Describing Hannah's approach to Kenneth's car as aggressive and noting that they witnessed her striking Kenneth. Hannah's claim of self-defense would not have been valid if the jury determined that she was the attacker and did not attempt to defuse the situation. Medical experts concluded that Kenneth died from a single gunshot wound to the abdomen, with no other injuries to the body. During the trial, Hannah defended herself by explaining that she believed she was following proper procedure when Terry Robinson, the main witness to the first incident, asked her to take a photo of Kenneth's license plate. Terry stated that he did not instruct Hannah to follow Kenneth. However, Hannah reported that she observed Terry waving his hand at her multiple times, as if signaling her to follow Kenneth's car and photograph his license plates. Witnesses described Hannah's driving as aggressive, noting that she nearly collided with another vehicle during the pursuit and created a dangerous situation by stopping in front of a red pickup truck. After the incident, Hannah shared with the jury a story similar to what she told the police. She said that when she approached Kenneth to ask him to return to the scene of the original accident, he grabbed her and refused to let go. She emphasized that the moment Kenneth hit the gas and crashed into her car, she felt extremely scared. The prosecution asked why Hannah ignored 4 police instructions to stop chasing Kenneth and return to the scene of the original accident. Hannah replied that she could not remember that moment because it had happened 4 years ago. The prosecution reiterated that the Kenneth did not know Hannah and was not obliged to follow her directives. After reviewing all the evidence, the jury took about 2 hours to deliberate and subsequently found Hannah Payne guilty of all charges, including premeditated murder. Hannah was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 43 years. The case of Kimberly Proctor. Kimberly Proctor was born on January 1, 1992, in Langford, Canada. She came from a middle-class family. Her mother, Lucia, was a manager at Walmart, and her father, Fred, was a mechanic. Kimberly was known for her kind and loving nature, especially towards animals. She had several pets at home, including lizards, rabbits, mice, but her greatest love was for cats. Unfortunately, her fondness for cats led to years of bullying at school, where she often wore small cat ears, and this harassment continued for a long time. According to her mother, Kimberly faced bullying for most of her life. Kimberly's situation became more difficult when she was diagnosed with an anxiety disorder, which made her more vulnerable to teasing. She began having panic attacks at school. As a result, her parents chose to enroll Kimberly in a different school. This school catered to young people with a variety of problems, including some who had been expelled from other schools for misbehavior. One of her classmates was Cruz Elwood, a boy who faced many challenges. Cruz lived with his mother. His father had been in prison since 2001 after being sentenced to 15 years for abusing and murdering a young girl. Cruz later admitted that he knew about his father's actions but did not want to talk about it. Despite his young age, Cruz was involved in drugs and had a history of stealing money from mailboxes. People who knew him described him as very intelligent. Another troubled student at the school was Cameron Moffat, a friend of Cruz's who was diagnosed with PTSD after being abused when he was 4 years old. Cameron had a difficult relationship with his parents, and neither medication nor counseling seemed to help. He often resisted treatment and began self-harming to cope with his anxiety. His aggressive behavior was evident both at home and at school, where he sometimes carried a knife. Cruz and Cameron met in the 5th grade and quickly became best friends. They did everything together, from skipping school to smoking marijuana. They also loved playing the computer game Warcraft and occasionally visited adult websites. Although their behavior at school was unpredictable, they were not seen as a serious threat. In February 2008, Cruz wrote a blog post about warning signs of a serial killer, listing common traits like cruelty to animals, a fascination with fire, parental abandonment, and a strong interest in violence. He pointed out that he fulfilled all 14 of the criteria he mentioned. By 2009, Kimberly had joined Cruz and Cameron's group, and they began to do everything together. When they weren't hanging out outside, they spent hours texting and chatting. During this time, Kimberly started dating Zach, who was friends with Cruz and Cameron. However, their relationship only lasted a couple of months before Zach decided to break up with her. This breakup upset Kimberly deeply, and she turned to her friends for support, spending long hours chatting online. During one of these conversations, Cameron revealed to Kimberly that he had feelings for her and thought she was beautiful. Kimberly appreciated the compliment but was only interested in Cruz, with whom she had grown closer after her breakup with Zach. Kimberly and Cruz began sharing their most private thoughts online, including secrets they had never revealed to anyone else. Kimberly opened up to Cruz about her honest feelings about her weight and height, and Cruz reassured her that she was beautiful just the way she was. However, Cruz and Cameron's lives began to take a dark and sinister turn. They began drinking blood and bodily fluids to see how they would feel. Cameron's friends said that he would sometimes lash out at his family and yell at his mother, while Cruz became increasingly aggressive toward his mother and defied any restrictions placed on him. Both boys began to have disturbing fantasies about being restrained and abused, leading them to explore adult websites with violent themes. Their discussions with Kimberly became increasingly disturbing. One day, Cameron made an innuendo-filled remark to Kimberly that upset her. When she shared this with Cruz, he responded by making the same suggestion. When Kimberly refused, Cruz threatened her ominously, saying, "Death is coming for you, and you will soon be dead." He then asked her about her plans for the next day. Cruz expressed interest in meeting her to discuss why some people were treating her so badly and other personal issues. They eventually agreed to call and meet the next day. She had no idea that Cruz had already contacted Cameron and they were exchanging messages about Kimberly. In Cameron and Cruz's conversation before the terrible events, they mentioned that they should proceed with their plan, saying that they have to be careful and that it will be interesting. They expressed their desire to do it immediately instead of waiting, saying that they will not harm her right away and can keep her alive but tied up. Later, Cameron and Cruz decide on a specific phrase to signal when to act to harm Kimberly. Cruz also suggests that they meet at the Ford bus stop at 10 o'clock. 18-year-old Kimberly accidentally found herself in a dangerous situation. That morning, Kimberly was still in bed while her mother, Lucia, prepared to leave for work. Before leaving, Lucia kissed Kimberly and expressed her love for her. Since Kimberly had no classes that day, her mother thought she would sleep in, especially since her only commitment was babysitting at 3 p.m. They had planned to start sewing Kimberly's prom dress together when Lucia returned home. However, Lucia was unaware that Kimberly had other plans. She had arranged to meet Cameron and Cruz at the bus station around 10:30 a.m. Kimberly got off the bus at the stop where her friends were waiting. Just minutes earlier, Cameron and Cruz had bought a can of gasoline as part of their terrifying plan. The three friends chatted for a while before heading to Cruz's house in Bali. Up until this point, everything seemed normal to Kimberly, and she had no idea of the terrifying situation her friends had planned for her. When they arrived at the house, Cruz used a code word to signal Cameron, and almost immediately, both attacked Kimberly, beating and kicking her. They bound her feet and ankles, stuffed a sock in her mouth, and taped it shut. Cameron and Cruz violently assaulted Kimberly for hours, ultimately causing her death by suffocation. Afterward, they desecrated her body in horrific ways, mutilating her and placing various items in her genital area, before storing her in a freezer in Cruz's garage. Cruz attempted to cover his tracks and establish an alibi by sending her a message from his computer. In this message, he pretended to be far away and asked her if she had completed her work as a nanny, claiming he needed her advice. Cameron and Cruz's actions were extremely disturbing, and they treated it as a game. That same night, after committing the horrific act, Cruz texted his girlfriend, asking her to come out of the house to meet him. Fortunately, she refused, which may have saved her life. The next morning, Cameron and Cruz placed Kimberly's body in a hockey bag and calmly took a bus to a remote forested area. There, they doused the bag with gasoline and set it on fire. During this time, Cruz made the mistake of using his cell phone to send a message. Meanwhile, Kimberly's parents and relatives were in a state of panic, unaware of her whereabouts. Her mother, Lucia, had tried to call Kimberly the day before, but when her calls went directly to voicemail, she sensed something was wrong. Lucia went to the police station to report Kimberly missing, and the search for Kimberly quickly began. After causing Kimberly's death, both Cruz and Cameron continued their lives as if nothing had happened. Cruz spent the day at home with his girlfriend, while Cameron had lunch with his mother and grandmother. Then they took him to buy a new video game. That night, a young man who was hanging out with friends discovered charred body under a bridge. The body was burned beyond recognition. The body was later identified through dental records and was that of Kimberly. The tragic news devastated Kimberly's family and friends. Police arrived to investigate the crime scene. At the time, police had no leads to identify anyone responsible for this horrific crime. Kimberly's family and friends reported that she had no known conflicts with anyone and were puzzled as to who could have harmed her. In her memory, the family created a Facebook page, which police are closely monitoring in the hopes of uncovering any clues. They are also keeping a close eye on all of Kimberly's acquaintances. The story of the horrific incident shocked Canada, and every media outlet covered it. At the time, Cruz was eager to share his dark exploit with someone he trusted. He decided to use the in-game chat feature, believing that chat records were unlikely to be kept or checked. On March 23rd, 5 days after the murder, Cruz messaged a young girl from Halifax, urging her to read something important. He then sent her links to news articles about the incident to prove that he was telling the truth. The girl was horrified by what Cruz revealed, but reacted the way he wanted, assuring him that she would always support him, no matter what his actions were. Cruz replied that that's why he trusted her, and he would repay her trust, no matter what. Suddenly, Cameron joined the conversation and backed up Cruz's account. The girl asked Cameron if he had any thoughts about Kimberly's family and friends and the lives he had impacted. Cameron simply replied that he felt no remorse for any of that. The young girl wrote to Cruz again, asking him not to repeat his previous actions. He promised he wouldn't. As time went on, the Cameron and Cruz their lives as if nothing had happened, but they kept a close eye on the investigation's progress. Their online chats and text messages mostly revolved around updates related to the case. Cruz confided to a friend that his father had advised him not to answer questions at school. This advice may have stemmed from his father's suspicion that Cruz was involved in Kimberly's death or knew who was responsible. An incident later occurred involving Samantha, one of Kimberly's close friends, who overheard Cruz making negative comments about Kimberly. Samantha asked him to stop, explaining that it still hurt her to hear such things so soon after Kimberly's death. In response, Cruz yelled that he did not care about Kimberly's death. Another student even reported hearing Cruz say that he was glad Kimberly was dead because he did not like her. At that point, police began investigating Cameron and Cruz, leading to their questioning. Both admitted to seeing Kimberly on the morning she went missing, but said they didn't spend much time with her because she had to go to school. Police began monitoring Cameron and Cruz's online activities. Police obtained a warrant to install wiretaps in their home and both were placed under close surveillance. Their cell phones were also tapped and investigations into their devices were conducted. Disturbing evidence was discovered, including text messages exchanged between them in online chats. Police seized numerous documents related to their activities. Police believe Cruz and Cameron were responsible for Kimberly's death. Cameron and Cruz were then arrested and charged with Kimberly's murder. Both appeared calm and unresponsive. Cruz remained silent throughout the interrogation. Cameron, on the other hand, repeatedly taunted the police and refused to provide any information. He eventually confessed to his crimes in a cold manner. After Cameron's confession, Cruz was forced to admit everything. They both later pleaded guilty to first-degree murder and destruction of human remains. A year after the events of 2011, Cameron and Cruz appeared at their trial, appearing calm and talking animatedly to each other about the questions they were being questioned about. Throughout the hearing, they remained calm and unflinching. A psychological evaluation found that Cruz displayed characteristics of a rapist that were rare for his age and was at high risk of committing violent acts again. He was also diagnosed with clinical psychopathy. The psychiatrist indicated that Cruz would require intensive and prolonged supervision for at least the next 10 years. Cameron had a high rate of reoffending and serious mental health issues. During the hearing, the judge needed to decide whether to try both young men as adults and transfer them to an adult prison or to treat them as juveniles. It's important to note that the defense requested they be tried as adults, believing this would provide the boys with better educational and rehabilitation opportunities. Only Kimberly's parents were focused on seeking the death penalty for the Cameron and Cruz. However, Canada does not have a death penalty. If the young men are tried as adults, they would face life imprisonment, with the possibility of parole after serving 25 years. If Cruz and Cameron had been tried as juveniles, the maximum sentence they would have faced would have been 6 years, along with 4 years of community service. Cameron Moffat and Cruz Wellwood were then sentenced to life in prison, with the possibility of appealing for bail after only 10 years. Kimberly's family has expressed their anger at the lenient sentence. Kimberly's father, Fred, expressed concern that Cameron and Cruz might continue their harmful behavior, and that this was unacceptable. Fred pointed out that both had confessed to their actions but showed no remorse, which he believed justified their lifelong detention. Meanwhile, Pacific High School, which Kimberly and the two killers attended, has established a protocol for dealing with threats of violence. The protocol would allow police, schools, and social services to exchange information about students who might pose a threat in order to prevent tragic consequences. When asked why they had treated Kimberly's body that way, Cruz mentioned that for him, it was about finding the satisfaction he craved. And he felt a sense of power in taking someone's life. He shared that his life until then had felt empty and pointless, and this act gave him a sense of fulfillment. Cruz's first petition for parole was set for June 2019 but was postponed to August. The psychological evaluation conducted at that time was nearly identical to the initial assessment, indicating that Cruz was still completely unfit for parole. Consequently, the specialist did not recommend granting him release in 2020. His appeal was denied once more, meaning Cruz will have to wait until 2025 for another chance at parole. Sometimes people get a second chance, but this case should not have been given a second chance. It was clear that there was a deliberate intention to commit a terrible act. Individuals like Cameron and Cruz acted out their darkest fantasies without remorse. In fact, it was revealed that Kimberly was just one of 3 victims they targeted. Given the nature of their actions and the psychiatric evaluations, it is clear that Cameron and Cruz should not be allowed to live freely in society. The case of Fernando Federico Reyes. The exact birth date of Fernando Federico Reyes is unknown, but he was born around 1983 in the village of Pampa Blanca, located in the El Carmen department of Jujuy province in northeastern Argentina. He was the youngest of 5 children of Orlando Reese and his wife, Tate. Records indicate that his older brother was named Diego. There is little information about Fernando's childhood and adolescence. In 2008, Fernando, then in his 20s, met 14-year-old Dana Estrella Belen Martinez. Despite their age difference, they quickly developed a relationship. Dana, born in 1994, grew up in the same village and had a close relationship with Fernando's family. She was known for her cheerful, energetic personality and for spreading positivity to those around her. Dana loved the nightlife and often attended parties. Their friendship quickly developed into a serious relationship and they began living together. They moved to the city of Pampa Blanca, and Fernando made a living as a taxi driver. A year and a half after moving in, the couple finally contacted Fernando's relatives to tell them about their new home. They shared how their lives had changed and reassured his family that everything was okay. Sometime later, Fernando began to keep in regular contact with his mother and often sought her advice, especially during conflicts with Dana. At the beginning of their journey, both Fernando and Dana had frequent job changes, which affected their finances. As a result, they were evicted from their home in Lario. Undeterred, they moved to Las Naga in the province of Belen. In this small village, they rented a small house owned by a man named Jose Cruz. Once they settled in, the neighbors quickly became aware of the couple's financial difficulties. Although the villagers themselves were not wealthy, they organized a fundraiser to provide Fernando and Dana with clothes, shoes, and food. The couple was extremely grateful for their kindness. The couple made new friends, including Maria and Simon. At the same time, Fernando's relationship with Dana was getting worse, which did not escape the notice of their neighbors. As arguments became frequent, the couple decided to separate. However, Fernando couldn't leave the children, so they all continued to live together under one roof. Over time, Dana began to threaten Fernando, warning him that if he left her and their children, she would report him to the police for violence. This behavior made their relationship even more complicated. As he usually did, Fernando reached out to his relatives to explain what was happening, including Dana's threats and his wish to divorce her. His parents, who lived in Jujuy, were concerned about their son's family issues. Dana begins to develop a close relationship with Simon and Maria. Dana's provocative actions increase the conflict between her and Fernando. In late November 2022, Jose, the owner of the house Dana and Fernando rent, invites Fernando to the Virgin del Valle de Catamarca celebration, which will take place from Sunday, December 4th to Thursday, December 8th. Fernando agreed to go. On Saturday night, December 3rd, there was a dance at the San Roca Club. Dana attended with Simon and Maria. When Fernando arrived, he and Dana got into an argument, but it quickly calmed down. People around witnessed the incident but did not intervene. Finally, frustrated and angry, Fernando decided to leave and headed toward a deserted area. Fernando was suddenly attacked by Dana, Simon, and Maria, who hit him several times on the head with blunt objects. He fell and died on the spot. The attackers then set fire to it and threw Fernando's body into it. One of the residents of La Ciénaga saw the fire in the field but did not think much of it. Eventually, it became clear that the fire did not completely burn the body. The three then placed the remains in bags and went to the banks of the Belen River. There, they dug 2 holes and buried 2 bags containing Fernando's body. Dana, Maria, and Simon returned to the party, where they drank, danced, and had fun until dawn, as if nothing had happened and without arousing the suspicions of the locals. On Sunday, December 4th, Jose was waiting for his friend Fernando to arrive for a party they had planned. As time passed and Fernando still hadn't shown up, Jose began to worry and reached out to Dana for clarification. She informed him that Fernando had gone to visit his family. Jose was left feeling confused and bewildered. He couldn't understand why Fernando hadn't told him about this. Days went by, but Fernando still didn't contact Jose. Concerned that something might be wrong, Jose asked Dana again for more information. It was then that she revealed that Fernando and Dana had decided to separate. The neighbors found it odd that the loud arguments in the couple's home suddenly stopped. Additionally, no one had seen Fernando for several days. Then, Dana told Jose that Fernando had gone back to the province of Larioca and found a well-paying job there. However, as she tried to dodge uncomfortable questions, her answers became more vague and unconvincing. This led Jose to doubt her stories. Over time, the children also noticed their father's absence and innocently asked their mother about it. Dana shared the heartbreaking news that their dad had died and was buried by the river. The children, feeling disheartened, did not fully understand what was happening. They began to bring flowers to the spot where their father had died. Jose decided to talk to the neighbors to gather information about Fernando's disappearance. 2 residents reported seeing the couple arguing. At a party later, another neighbor mentioned a fire that had broken out during the night. Meanwhile, Dana continued to deceive Fernando's family, claiming that he had abandoned her and the children. She also began asking them for money to support the children. In mid-April 2023, Jose, determined to uncover the truth, sought to verify whether Fernando had indeed returned to Jujuri and to his family. Fernando's brother, Diego, ignored the messages and then blocked Jose. Despite this setback, Jose persisted and contacted Fernando's sister in his quest for answers. Unfortunately, he also failed her, as she did not trust his intentions. In late April, a party was held 2 hours away from La Ciénaga. Dana and Fernando were guests at the event. Dana left her children at home and locked them inside. When she arrived at the party alone, the other guests became concerned because they had not seen Fernando since November, and he still had not shown up. Then Jose, the landlord, heard noises coming from the house. He had a spare key, so he decided to check inside. There, he found the small children left alone. One of the girls told him something that made him realize that he needed to call the police. On May 5, 2023, Jose reported Fernando missing. A large-scale search operation began shortly thereafter, involving police, forensic experts, and search dogs. The first day of the search yielded no results. Dana was taken to the police station for questioning. When the police arrived at her home, they were greeted by her eldest son, who told the same story as his sister. The police focused their search on the area near the river. During questioning, Dana maintained her previous statement about Fernando's trip to Jujuri, now claiming that he left because his brother Diego had died. To verify this claim, the police contacted Diego's relatives. After speaking with them, it became clear that Dana had lied, leading to her arrest on May 7th. The police focused their search on the location indicated by Fernando's son. They found a black plastic bag containing charred human remains approximately 160 to 165 centimeters tall and in a state of decomposition. Forensic doctors later confirmed that the remains were indeed human. The police sent the body to the forensic laboratory to confirm the identity of the deceased. This evidence prompted Dana to confess to the murder, especially when she was told that remaining silent could result in a life sentence. The interrogation, which was attended by Prosecutor Marina, lasted about 8 hours. Dana attempted to explain her actions in a way that minimized her guilt, claiming that she had acted in self-defense. She said that Fernando, 39, had harassed her, causing her to hit him without intending to kill him. She had misjudged the force of her blows, and when she realized that she had accidentally killed Fernando, she panicked and decided to cover up the crime. In addition, she was quick to reveal the identities of her accomplices in the early stages of the investigation. On the morning of May 8, 2023, after questioning, the prosecutor charged Dana with murder. Dana was arrested at the Belém police station. Meanwhile, Maria and Simon were charged with murder. Both were detained at the Belém police station. Dana, Maria, and Simon's cell phones were confiscated for thorough analysis. The police examined calls, messages, photos, videos, and other relevant documents. Fernando's family was extremely distressed. They were shocked by Dana's cruel actions. Fernando's family traveled to Catamarca to assist in the investigation. During this trip, they provided DNA samples and found solace in being reunited with the children. The children's grandmother took them home, bringing comfort to Fernando's relatives. On May 18th, Simon and Maria appeared before Prosecutor Marina, both represented by the same lawyer. They firmly denied any involvement in the incident. The lawyer argued that the testimony was unreliable, claiming that the evidence against Simon and Maria was insufficient. A few days later, the defense requested the results of psychological and psychiatric evaluations of the suspects. On May 31st, the judge granted the request, resulting in the suspension of the preliminary hearing. Prosecutor Marina requested that Dana, Simon, and Maria remain in custody until a trial date is set, given the seriousness of the crimes. Fernando's family attended the hearing to support the prosecution, represented by a lawyer. The hearing was originally scheduled for June 13, 2023, but was postponed and the next tentative date is currently unknown. Dana, Simon, and Maria, who are accused of murdering Fernando, will face justice for their actions. Fernando's relatives hope for a fair outcome. The case of Monica McCarrick. Tori and her twin sister Lily Ball were born in September 2007 to parents Monica McCarrick and Michael Ball, who lived in San Diego, California. Their relationship was difficult from the start, partly due to their 10-year age gap. Monica struggled with substance abuse, which often led to her run-ins with the police. In 2006, she was arrested for domestic violence and given probation, but her aggressive behavior continued, eventually leading to the couple's divorce. Following the split, Michael filed for custody of the twins in 2009. Monica's life took a new turn. She began dating Robert Paulson, her first love. They had been friends for over 10 years, and their long-distance relationship began on Thanksgiving Day 2009 when Monica discovered her ex's social media page and contacted him. They began communicating as friends. However, Robert was in a relationship with another girl named Jill. In April 2010, a tragic event occurred when Jill took her own life with Robert's gun. Robert had a passion for guns and owned a collection that included a samurai sword and an agile rifle. After this heartbreaking incident, Monica supported Robert through his grief and they became closer, eventually starting a romantic relationship. In May 2010, Monica and the children moved to Pennsylvania. Their romance progressed quickly, leading to their engagement just days later. Monica was very happy during this time. She became a devoted mother, worked as a manager at a dental office, and pursued further education. Robert was also happy, and it seemed like their lives were improving. Unfortunately, this story would not have a happy ending. In August 2010, Monica and Robert moved to California while still planning their wedding. They rented an apartment in a residential area in Fairfield. Monica was looking for a school for her daughters and had obtained her license to practice dentistry. Robert supported her and admired her dedication as a mother to ensuring a good future for her daughters. He appreciated her calm demeanor. Robert worked for a film crew, which required him to travel for filming, resulting in him being absent for long periods of time. On September 9, 2010, just a month after moving to California, Robert was called away on a long business trip to film a movie in Minnesota. This left him with no choice but to leave, which upset Monica. She was not ready to let him go, as she still had unresolved issues from the move and wanted to improve their life together. Monica nevertheless agreed to let Robert go on the business trip. At first, everything seemed fine, but about 3 weeks after he left, Robert began to notice that Monica's behavior had changed significantly. She began to act very strangely. Monica discovers a script written by Robert that depicts a horror story about a man who chases children down a beach, ultimately leading to their deaths. Monica understands that the script is about her family and fears for her children's safety. However, Robert denied all of this. Robert insisted that it was a work of fiction related to his work. Throughout Robert's business trip, Monica frequently brought up her concerns in conversation. Eventually, she began to claim that Robert's previous girlfriend had died because of him. Monica suspected that Robert was involved with another woman at the time and believed that his affair contributed to his ex-girlfriend's tragic decision. Robert spent hours on the phone and texting Monica to calm her down. Unfortunately, this only worked for a short time before she began to express new suspicions. People who came into contact with her during this time noticed her paranoid behavior. Monica wanted Robert to stay home and objected to his long business trips. Robert reassured her that his trip to Minnesota would be over soon and that she was eagerly awaiting his return. On the day before his return, Robert's manager informed him that he would need to stay in Alaska for another 5 to 10 days to finish filming, as they had found the ideal location for some of the missing scenes. When he shared this news with Monica, she became extremely upset. She tried her best to convince him to return home with her and the children, saying that she could not handle the situation on her own. Although she pleaded for help, Robert felt helpless and asked her to be patient a little longer. Monica was not completely alone, her family supported her. However, Robert noticed that her mental state seemed unstable. Her friends, who remained in contact with her during this time, often mentioned this in their conversations. On September 25th, Monica contacted her friend Regina, expressing that she feared for her life. Monica truly believed that Robert and his mother might harm her. She asked Regina to contact the police if anything happened to her. That same day, Monica contacted her friend Maritza to express her concerns about Robert and his family. She stressed that she felt unsafe and feared for the safety of her children. Maritza called her to discuss the matter further. During the conversation, Monica shared that her suspicions were related to a script Robert had written that depicted a murder involving a woman and her children. Maritza reassured Monica, and for a moment things seemed to calm down, but the calm did not last long. Maritza received another alarming text message 3 days later, on September 29th. In this message, Monica claimed that someone wanted to kidnap her children and harm her. She also contacted another friend, Pamela, expressing her fear that Robert intended to harm her. Monica was genuinely afraid for her safety, but she also hoped that her fears were paranoid. She stressed that if she or her children went missing, it was important to contact the police and hold Robert accountable. Unfortunately, Pamela was unable to visit Monica this time because she was in another city visiting her mother. The conversation ended with Monica declaring her intention to go to the police to prove Robert's involvement in the murder of his ex-girlfriend, Jill. However, many of her text messages were inconsistent. She expressed stress about raising her children, feeling overwhelmed by having to deal with the problems on her own. This confused the Pamela, who knew that Robert worked hard to provide for the family. At the same time, Monica often mentioned her desire to be free, to relax, and to enjoy herself. Michael often took the Tori and Lily out, giving Monica a chance to relax. She also had many friends and family to lean on. Not everyone was able to respond immediately to Monica when a problem arose, but they were able to reach her within a few hours to offer their support. They constantly help her. Friends and acquaintances noted that in Pennsylvania, Monica was much calmer and handled everyday problems well, even when she was alone. However, when she moved to California, where all her relatives and friends lived, she became panicky about Robert's absence. From September 29th to October 4th, 2010, Monica and her children traveled to San Diego to visit their mother. During this visit, she shared a script written by Robert, which frightened her. She was also concerned about the many weapons stored in the home. She feared that Robert intended to harm them with these weapons and discussed her concerns with her mother. Monica was clearly nervous and anxious about her upcoming wedding. However, after she and her daughters went shopping for wedding dresses, her mood changed. Monica seemed happy and excited, taking many pictures of the dress she had chosen and sending them to friends and family, including one to her grandmother, Terry Faye. They had a close relationship, with her grandmother visiting regularly and supporting her. On October 11th, Monica called her grandmother Terry again and expressed her fear of losing her daughter and her concerns for her own safety. However, during this call, Terry noticed that Monica's behavior was unusual. Monica's situation is confusing. She has moved across the country in search of a better life, hoping to be closer to her family. Her goal is to marry Robert and build a life with him and their children. However, she frequently expresses fears for her safety, especially around Robert. Despite her fear of Robert, she pursues the marriage. Meanwhile, Michael is fighting for custody of their twins. Robert's mother, Roxanne, became increasingly concerned about Monica. While her son was away, she noticed that Monica was losing control. Monica handled things well at first, but as time went on, her instability became more apparent. Roxanne often takes Tori and Lily for walks, giving Monica time to rest. Occasionally, Monica and the children would visit Roxanne. An alarming incident occurred while Monica was sleeping at Roxanne's house. She suddenly woke up around 3 in the morning and began to prepare for something. Roxanne heard a noise and went outside to check what was going on. Monica pointed to a car parked on the street near her house, believing that someone was following her, which made her very nervous. Roxanne, knowing the owner of the car, tried to reassure Monica. The car belonged to a neighbor who had just returned home late from work. He had lived in the area for a long time, was a devoted family man, and did not pose any threat to them. Monica's concerns did not subside, so she took her daughters and went home, insisting she did not feel safe. When she returned home, she began to feel more comfortable. The next morning, she informed Robert's mother, Roxanne, that she was feeling fine. In the afternoon, she called Roxanne at work, saying that a delivery man had come to her house and hinted that he might be part of a plot to harm her. Despite Roxanne's attempts to calm her down, Monica remained restless. She then tried to call her mother, but her mother was at work and could not talk for long. Her mother reassured Monica to calm down. Monica replied that everything was fine and then ended the call. The next morning, October 12th, the neighborhood manager came to Monica's apartment to ask her to move her car. She parked her car blocking several other parking spaces. When the manager knocked on the door, Monica was too scared to open it. After a long conversation through the door, Monica finally agreed to open the door and go outside to park her car properly. During this time, the manager noticed that Monica's two daughters, Tori and Lily, were in the apartment and they seemed okay. Monica called in to take time off work so she could get a new hairstyle for her wedding. While she was on the phone, her manager noticed a child crying in the background. Robert later spoke to Monica on the phone and via text messages. He found her messages confusing and included some inappropriate quotes. From what he could understand, it sounded like she was talking about children. One message read, "Let the bunnies go away forever." Robert understood this to be a reference to the custody battle involving Monica's ex-husband, Michael, who was seeking full custody. It was likely that the court would award custody to Michael, which would mean that Lily and Tori could be separated from Monica. With her past issues with substance abuse and mental health, she was at risk of losing her parental rights. However, Robert was busy and didn't think much of the message. That evening, Monica and Robert spoke on the phone. Monica was very difficult to understand, speaking very quickly and seeming to move around her apartment, with a lot of background noise. She hung up several times but called back immediately. She insisted that whatever had happened should be considered an accident. It was unclear what she meant, but her tone was very disturbing. Monica also mentioned that she had planned to start a fire with her children. Suddenly, the fire alarm went off, and he heard Monica scream before the call abruptly ended. Worried, Robert kept calling Monica, but no one answered. Worried, he contacted the police to check on her. It felt like a horrible nightmare, but he had no idea that the situation was much more horrifying than he could have imagined. Monica fed Tori and Lily and tied them to high chairs. She then took a samurai sword from the wall in Robert's office and began to violently attack the children. Within minutes, Monica had killed Tori and Lily and used their bodies to barricade the apartment door before setting the apartment on fire. The neighbors only heard the children's short cries and some noises, which did not arouse any suspicion. When the fire alarm rang, it was too late. The downstairs neighbor noticed smoke coming from the apartment above and called the police. After calling, he quickly ran upstairs and broke down the door, but it wouldn't open. He then tried to enter through the sliding window of the third-floor apartment. Luckily, he was able to reach the window and get in. The room was filled with thick smoke, making it difficult to see. When the neighbor entered the area where the tragic incident with the children took place, the entire floor was covered in blood, and there was a sword and a medicine bottle on the ground, which could have been the murder weapon. Unfortunately, it was too late to save Tori and Lily. When police arrived, they were unable to enter the home immediately because the children's bodies were blocking the front door. After some struggle, they were able to get inside. The entire apartment was filled with smoke, and the fire was in the pantry next to the front door. After the fire was extinguished and the smoke cleared, the rescue team discovered the children's bodies. They also found Monica, who was unconscious and had suffered multiple serious injuries that appeared to be self-inflicted. Monica was rushed to the medical center in critical condition. Her injuries included lacerations to her neck and hands, several severed fingers, and severed tendons. Both ankles were injured, and there was a deep wound to her thigh. During a search of the apartment, police found several weapons, including a loaded rifle, a shotgun, and a loaded pistol. A significant amount of live ammunition was discovered in the hallway, along with a sword and a lighter that Monica used to start a fire in the pantry. Two high chairs, which were overturned and covered in blood, indicated that the children were eating when the murder occurred, as trays with plates and food were found scattered on the floor. A laptop displaying cartoons was in front of them. The kitchen table was also smeared with blood, suggesting that there was an attempt to clean it hurriedly. Additionally, a thrilling novel by James Patterson about a serial killer was opened to a page that read, "My daughter died." During the analysis of the vial, forensic experts found no dangerous or powerful drugs. During the autopsy, they discovered multiple injuries on Tori and Lily. Tori had 11 cuts on her face and deep wounds on the front of her neck. On her chest, there were 9 shallow cuts and 2 stab wounds. One punctured her lung and the other punctured her heart. Lily had multiple injuries, including 5 cuts on her face and neck and 9 cuts on her chest, including one so severe that it nearly severed her head. The sword had severed Lily's larynx and arteries. The children's arms were the most injured, suggesting the twins had attempted to defend themselves. None of the girls inhaled smoke from the fire, indicating that they were already dead when the fire started, as there was no soot in their lungs. The brutality of their murders shocked all the experts involved in the case. Shortly after being released from the hospital, 27-year-old Monica was arrested and charged with 2 counts of premeditated murder, arson, attempting to destroy evidence, and obstructing the investigation. Confined to a wheelchair and covered in bandages, she appeared in court on October 26, 2010, where she did not plead guilty. Monica argued that her crime was a result of insanity, leading to her being sent for a psychiatric evaluation from October 2010 to June 2011. A prison psychiatrist met with her more than 10 times, spending around 20 hours in discussions, conducting various psychological tests, reviewing her medical records, and speaking with her family members. The psychiatrist found that when Monica was 14, she had displayed similar self-harming behaviors. At that time, she was diagnosed with a type of attention deficit disorder and prescribed medication to manage it. However, she did not complete her treatment and later began abusing illegal drugs, which resulted in her developing bipolar disorder. The Monica stated that she started drinking alcohol at 12 and began using marijuana at 14, which ultimately led to her becoming addicted to illegal drugs by 18. From 2003 to 2005, she was diagnosed with depression while living in San Diego and received professional psychiatric treatment. After Robert went on a business trip, she relapsed and used drugs throughout September and October 2010. Monica reported experiencing paranoid thoughts, common in heavy users. She confessed to her psychiatrist that she had been heavily intoxicated in the 4 days before the crime. Monica often told her doctor that her addiction made it difficult for her to communicate with her children. As a result, she often tried to stay away from them, sometimes leaving them with strangers. She called her loved ones several times, seeking their help, and they tried to support her. However, the psychiatrist revealed that Monica's problems were not only due to illegal drugs. In the days leading up to the tragic event, she experienced delusions, paranoia, and feelings of being persecuted. She believed that Robert and his mother were planning to kidnap her daughters and torture them, a fear that was heightened by a story Robert wrote. In prison, she told a psychiatrist that she had read in a book the exact time that the attackers would arrive to try to enslave her daughter. The psychiatrist recognized this as a symptom known as reference ideas, in which the patient believes that ordinary events contain hidden messages. Monica was convinced that certain events were destined to happen. Monica believed that this was a sign that her children would be enslaved. In her desperation to save Tori and Lily, she realized that even if she saved them from Robert, she could still lose them if her ex-husband Michael won custody in court. This led her to the tragic conclusion that her daughters needed to be killed, which she did. However, despite her serious actions, her thought process showed that she was still quite sane, despite some mental health issues. She planned to barricade the door so that it could not be opened immediately and only set it on fire after killing her children, with the intention of covering up what had happened. Another psychiatrist, after speaking with Monica, concluded that she was not fully aware of her actions. He believed that Monica thought she was saving her children when she brutally killed them. On October 25, 2011, while in prison, Monica confided to a fellow inmate that she was hearing voices. By November, she began to have paranoid thoughts, fearing that she would be attacked. In April 2012, she overdosed while still incarcerated. Monica reported using illegal drugs, and prison guards observed that she drank up to 12 cups of coffee a day, which worsened her mental state. She frequently expressed concerns about threats to her life from prison gangs and often attempted to communicate with doctors and other professionals. But her reports were inconsistent, unclear, and sometimes completely false. Her psychological evaluation hearings dragged on. Michael attended the trial and asked not to show mercy to the Monica who'd taken the lives of the babies. The final decision was up to the jury. After hours of deliberation, they concluded that Monica had intentionally killed Tori and Lily. On June 15, 2012, Monica McCarrick was convicted of first-degree murder. The jury sentenced Monica to 2 consecutive life terms in state prison, without the possibility of parole. During her trial, she cried. She told the court that she was praying for everyone's well-being, despite her own deteriorating condition. Monica expressed that she loved her daughters. Monica is currently serving her sentence in a California prison and has attempted to appeal her sentence multiple times. On August 22, 2019, an online petition was started, urging the governor of California to overturn Monica's sentence. The petition claims that nearly all psychiatric experts who have reviewed her case believe she was not aware of her actions when the crime occurred. However, as of now, only 144 people have signed the petition, and Monica is still incarcerated. The case of Charlotte Brown. 20-year-old Charlotte Brown from Essex, a county in the southeast of England, was having a conversation with her sister Katie and a friend. They were discussing where to meet a young man. Charlotte shared that she was looking for a serious, long-term relationship and wasn't very interested in dating sites. However, her sister suggested a new dating site to her, and after some consideration, Charlotte signed up. Soon after, she received a message from a 24-year-old named Jack Shepard. They began chatting online and got to know each other better. Things were going well. Jack and Charlotte planned to meet in person. However, on the day of their meeting, Jack sent Charlotte a text message apologizing and explaining that he couldn't meet because he was getting back together with his ex-girlfriend. Feeling frustrated, Charlotte decided to block Jack and continued her search for love on the site. A few months later, Jack reached out to Charlotte again. He expressed his sincere apologies for disappointing her and asked if they could meet to make amends. Charlotte agreed to go on a date with him. On December 8, 2015, Jack wanted to impress Charlotte, so he took her to the Shard, a well-known skyscraper in Londo. While enjoying wine and conversation, they seemed to be having a great time. Charlotte took photos and shared them with her sister. Later, Jack invited her to his boathouse to continue their evening, and she agreed. After Jack paid the bill, they took a taxi to his place, which was 10 miles away from Charlotte's home in Hammersmith. When they arrived at the boathouse and had a drink, Jack bragged about his boat and suggested they go out. Charlotte loved the idea, as she was hoping for a romantic adventure. She sent a text message to her sister, letting her know about the boat trip, but her sister appeared worried about the matter. Charlotte reassured her sister that everything would be fine. Charlotte had a great time on the boat, capturing the moments in photos and videos to send to her sister. They were sailing along the Thames one December night. Charlotte was laughing and even shouting with excitement. However, Jack began to speed up, and soon they were going twice the speed limit on the river. Witnesses observed the boat speeding along the Thames. Suddenly, there was a loud bang, followed by a cry for help. People called 911 to report that someone had fallen into the river and needed help nearby. Jack was holding on to the sides of the boat with his hands. The boat capsized near Onslow Bridge after hitting a submerged log. Police arrived at the scene and began searching the area, assisted by officers from the Marine Corps Support Unit and Air Support. At 11:40 p.m. that night, they found Jack clinging to the side of a boat, but Charlotte was missing. The Air Support Unit lit up the river with powerful searchlights to search for the Charlotte. When the lifeboat arrived, they discovered Charlotte, but she showed no signs of life. They attempted CPR on Charlotte, but it was to no avail. Her body grew colder and colder, and by the time she reached the hospital, she was pronounced dead. An autopsy revealed that Charlotte had died from prolonged exposure to cold water. The next day, the police brought in Jack Shepherd for questioning. Meanwhile, Charlotte's sister Katie had been texting her and was growing increasingly worried as she had not received a response throughout the night. Although Katie was busy with work during the day and could not be reached, it was clear that all of her texts and calls had gone unanswered. Additionally, Charlotte had not shown up for work, which was very unusual for her. Charlotte's mother was at home when the doorbell rang. She opened the door to two police officers who delivered the devastating news that Charlotte had died. This left her family and friends utterly heartbroken. During the investigation, Jack mentioned that he had met Charlotte around 6 p.m. for a date. He said they had never met before but had planned to go to the Shard and then return to his boat. Jack noted that he had trouble recalling the details of the evening. Jack said that he had been the one steering the boat. They had then switched positions. When Charlotte was steering the boat, he moved to a seat while holding on to the crossbar because of the speed. Jack mentioned that there were life jackets on the boat, but they had not worn them because he had not told Charlotte about them. He also noted that he was not sure if she knew how to swim because they had not discussed it. They had been drinking on the boat, but his memory of the whole thing was hazy. After the incident, Jack went to a restaurant, ordered a bottle of wine, had a meal, and drank another bottle of wine before taking a taxi home. He said his memory of the entire evening was hazy. According to Jack, Charlotte wanted to steer the boat and he allowed her to do so. His memory is unclear due to his intoxication, but he always remembered that Charlotte was at the helm. He said that when he got into the water, he called out to Charlotte, but she was gone. He was eventually rescued from the river, but Charlotte's bag, which contained documents, keys, wallet, and mobile phone, was never found because it had fallen into the water. During police questioning of Jack, he appeared very upset. He was described as a well-dressed, well-educated young man who repeatedly claimed that Charlotte was the boatman and blamed her for the incident. Shockingly, many who knew Charlotte or heard of what happened were largely critical of her. Jack told the police that he had taken about 10 girls out on his boat before, returning to the house for fun afterward. When asked whether he took all of his dates on the river, he stated that these boat rides were simply part of his usual routine to impress and charm girls. The police then inspected the boat and discovered it was old, had been involved in multiple accidents, and had undergone several repairs. It had many other serious flaws, making it dangerously unsafe. Charlotte's friend Lodi became curious about Jack and sought to learn more about him. She discovered that Jack was 30 years old, a successful web designer and developer, and enjoyed flaunting his wealth. Jack created his own online dating site that focused on facilitating brief encounters, typically for 1 or 2 meetings. On Facebook, Jack had numerous photos of himself, both alone and with friends and women. He referred to himself as Captain Jack and often bragged about himself. The police wanted to question Jack again, but he arrived with his lawyer, who presented a statement on his behalf. In this statement, Jack claimed that his memories of that night were unclear and incomplete. He confirmed that he was on a boat with Charlotte and that a girl was driving at the time of the accident. However, he had no recollection of the crash or the events leading up to it, except that Charlotte was at the helm of the boat. After the lawyer read the statement, Jack was asked numerous questions. But he chose not to respond to any of them. When an officer criticized him for not giving Charlotte a chance to save herself by not providing her with a life jacket, Jack remained silent. Later, the police chief learned that the day after the accident, on February 9th, Jack went directly from the police station to the registry office to apply for a marriage license with his longtime girlfriend. In November, they welcomed a child. This means that after Charlotte's death, Jack got married and then moved to Wales with his wife. He wanted to get away from where Charlotte died and start over somewhere where no one would recognize him. He wanted to forget the past and start a new life. The police decided not to close the case because they sensed something was off. They quietly kept an eye on Jack's activities. The search for Charlotte's belongings, which were lost in the river, continued. Eventually, they discovered her bag and mobile phone. It took nearly a year to recover, clean, and dry these items. When the experts examined the phone, they found a video from that night. The footage revealed that Jack was the one driving the boat, not Charlotte. It became clear that Jack was attempting to shift the blame to Charlotte for her own death. In the video, Charlotte could be heard shouting that the boat was going too fast, highlighting that Jack had lied about who was actually at the helm. They inspected the boat again. The police discovered life jackets hidden on the boat, which no one had used because Jack had not informed anyone about them. It was concluded that it was unlikely the girl was both driving the boat and filming the video at the same time, especially since Jack was frequently seen on camera standing behind the wheel. On September 20th, 2017, Jack was charged with manslaughter due to gross negligence. By October 2017, he appeared in court and was released on bail. However, on January 26, 2018, Jack failed to appear in court and pleaded not guilty to the charges against him. Meanwhile, the trial for Charlotte's death was approaching quickly. It was mid-May when Jack informed his legal team that he would not attend the hearing. He was determined not to go. When the trial began in July 2018, Jack followed through with his plan and did not appear in court. In contrast, Charlotte's family attended throughout the trial. They were understandably upset and informed on the first day that Jack would not be present. Jack's lawyers communicated with him online, sharing court documents for him to review and comment on. However, they did not know his exact location. Many were angry when Jack chose not to attend the trial, despite having legal representation. He seemed to believe that he was above the law and did not feel the need to be present because he claimed innocence. Jack repeatedly asserted his innocence and tried to blame Charlotte. Instead of appearing in court to defend himself or claim he did nothing wrong, he simply chose to hide. The court had to determine that Jack, as the owner of the boat, had a responsibility to ensure the safety of everyone on board, including Charlotte. The judge spent about 20 minutes looking at photos of the boat because they wanted to get an idea of the type of vessel Jack was using. All of Jack's girlfriends discovered that he had purchased an old boat at a low price from a website that sells second-hand items. Although the boat was in poor condition and required significant repairs, Jack, who had a good income, chose not to invest in fixing it. Instead, he used the boat for evening outings with his girlfriends. The court also found out that Jack had a date in August, shortly before he met Charlotte. As usual, their evening included a boat ride, during which they were stopped by the river police. The officers warned them about the importance of wearing life jackets to prevent any accidents. Jack had met this girl, like Charlotte and the others, on a dating site. They enjoyed their time together. He took her to the Shard, bought her drinks, invited her to his home, and then took her for a boat ride. However, he drove the boat at such a high speed that she became very frightened. Finally, she asked Jack to stop, let her off the shore, and call a taxi for her. The girl was called to court to testify. On July 10, 2018, Jack Shepherd was found guilty of manslaughter. Shortly after, news emerged that he had gone into hiding. His legal team tried to reach him, but he did not respond. On July 26, Jack was sentenced to 6 years in prison for the manslaughter of Charlotte Brown, yet his whereabouts remained unknown. Police launched an international search for Jack and offered a $25,000 reward for any information leading to his whereabouts. It was eventually discovered that Jack had fled to Turkey and then moved to Georgia. British media discovered his residence in Georgia, revealing that he was living in dire conditions. He wanted to appeal his sentence, and eventually, a lawyer suggested he go on television to share his side of the story. Jack consistently claimed that he did not remember the events of that night. His memories were vague. In every statement, he mentioned that he only recalled how Charlotte switched places with him on the boat and took his seat, after which the accident occurred. In the interview Jack prepared, he was more open about what transpired, yet he still blamed Charlotte for her death. He refused to accept any responsibility and instead spread misinformation to the media. Jack then surrendered to the Georgian police. He believed he could contest his extradition with the assistance of a lawyer who claimed his innocence. He also hoped to have his conviction overturned. However, he was extradited back to the UK to serve his 6-year prison sentence for the manslaughter of Charlotte Brown. Charlotte's mom expressed her deep sorrow, saying that words cannot capture how incredible her daughter was. She described Charlotte as her best daughter and closest friend. She wants Jack Shepherd to understand that while he enjoys his life with his family, she struggles to find joy in her own life. She shared that the experience has been overwhelmingly painful, and it's impossible to fully convey the suffering her family endured. The case of Rebecca Zahau. Rebecca Zahau was born on March 15, 1979, in Flam. She grew up in a large family. Rebecca's parents were devout Christians, and she was raised Protestant. Her family lived in Germany and Nepal for a while before moving to the United States in the early 2000s, settling in New York and California. Rebecca attracted the attention of many men, not only because of her looks, but also because of her charming personality. During her teenage years, Rebecca attended Calvary Chapel Bible College in Austria, where she met Neil Nail Poi, a man from Arizona who was 13 years her senior. She fell deeply in love with him, and in 2002, they married when she was 23. They later moved to Phoenix, where Rebecca worked at an eye clinic. This couple's marriage had its ups and downs, lasting for 8 years before they divorced in 2011. During the breakup, Rebecca experienced significant turmoil. In 2009, she was arrested and pleaded guilty to shoplifting after stealing $1,000 worth of jewelry. She then began dating Jonah Oshanamet, 54. Jonah is the chairman of a multi-million-dollar pharmaceutical company. He is the 9th highest paid CEO in Arizona, earning more than $6 million a year. Rebecca first met Jonah while working as a technician at a Talmaloga, and they soon began dating. Their relationship became serious, although Rebecca was not yet divorced from Neil, and Jonah had been married twice before. His first marriage led to a 3-year custody battle over his 2 children. Jonah had a son, Maxwell Tarrant, from his second marriage to Dina Romanoff in 2005. That marriage ended in divorce in 2010. After starting a relationship with Jonah, Rebecca quit her job at the eye clinic to spend more time with him and help care for the children. Rebecca lives in Jonah's massive mansion on Ocean Avenue in San Diego. However, Rebecca's life is not a fairy tale, and not everything is as it seems. The main issues stemmed from Jonah's two daughters from his first marriage, who did not get along with Rebecca. Their dislike for her became so intense that Rebecca considered either ending her relationship with Jonah. Despite this, Rebecca's biggest success was forming a strong bond with Jonah's youngest child, 6-year-old Maxwell. She cared for him like a mother, taking him to soccer practice, reading him bedtime stories, playing with him, and cooking for him as part of their daily routine. In July 2011, while Jonah was away on a business trip, tragedy struck. He believed his children were safe in Rebecca's care. Rebecca, along with younger sister visiting from Missouri, and Maxwell are both at home, each busy with their own activities. Everything seemed normal until Rebecca went into the bathroom. After a while, she was startled by a loud noise. Hurriedly dressing, Rebecca called out to Maxwell and younger sister, hoping for a response, but received no response. When she leaned over the railing, she found a horrifying sight. Maxwell was lying face down on the floor next to a fallen chandelier, surrounded by a pool of blood. Rebecca's younger sister, Zena, called 911 after Maxwell fell from the second floor. When paramedics arrived, they rushed him to the children's hospital. Maxwell had fallen over the railing and hit his head on a chandelier. He landed face down and suffered serious injuries to his face and spinal cord, causing his heart to stop and cutting off oxygen to his brain. Doctors attempted to help Maxwell breathe, but unfortunately, the boy was deprived of oxygen for nearly 30 minutes, resulting in irreversible brain damage. Tragically, the Maxwell died 5 days later. Police investigated the incident and on July 26th, concluded that Maxwell's death was an accident. Maxwell ran away down the upstairs hallway. Before he could stop himself, he fell over the second floor railing. In an attempt to catch himself, he tried to grab the chandelier but instead hit the stairs railing on the way down. He landed hard on the floor. It seemed like a tragic accident, and many accepted it as such. Now, let's go back to July 12, 2011, the day after Maxwell's accident. Rebecca took her sister Zena to the airport and then picked up Jonah's brother Adam, who flew in from Tennessee. Meanwhile, Maxwell was still in the intensive care unit. Jonah then visited his son at the hospital while Rebecca and Adam stayed at the mansion. Adam stayed in a guest house on the sprawling estate, while Rebecca stayed alone in the mansion. Details of that evening are unclear, but neighbors reported loud music coming from the house throughout the night. The next morning, around 6:45 a.m., Adam awoke to a horrifying scene on the mansion's balcony. Rebecca's body was hanging there, with her hands tied behind her back and her ankles bound with red rope. A long-sleeved t-shirt was wrapped around her head. Adam quickly called 911. When asked about the girl's condition, Adam said he didn't know. Adam then cut the rope and tried to resuscitate her while waiting for the ambulance, but it was too late. 2 days after Maxwell's tragic death, Rebecca also died. The San Diego Sheriff's Department quickly began an investigation. In Rebecca's room, they discovered a red rope tied to the foot of the bed, extending out onto the balcony. What stood out, however, was a book on magic lying on the bed, with drawings of women with their hands tied behind their backs. The Rebecca's DNA was discovered on the knots of the rope and on the kitchen knife she used to cut the rope. Additionally, black paint stains were found on Rebecca's hands and the rope. There were no DNA or fingerprint traces from any unknown person. An autopsy conducted by the San Diego Medical Examiner revealed that Rebecca had sustained a traumatic brain injury. Several months later, on September 2, 2011, the Sheriff's Department officially concluded that Rebecca Zahau had taken her own life out of guilt related to Maxwell's tragic accident that had occurred just 2 days earlier. To back up these claims, police shared detailed findings, including demonstrating how Rebecca was able to tie herself up. According to them, the story begins with a late-night call from Adam, informing Rebecca that Maxwell was in critical condition and might not survive. Shortly before 1 a.m. on July 13th, Rebecca began to execute her plan. She undressed and tied one end of a rope to the foot of her bed, then fashioned a noose with the other end. Afterward, she went out onto the balcony with the rope, tied her ankles together, and secured her hands behind her back with it. Ultimately, she leaned forward over the edge of the balcony and fell 9 feet. Rebecca lost consciousness within 15 seconds and died approximately 20 minutes later. Police reported that it was clear Rebecca died as a result of her own actions and by her own choice. Rebecca's family refused to accept the police explanation for her death. They were convinced that it was murder. Rebecca's family, including her first husband Neil, never thought she would intentionally harm herself. Just the day before her death, Rebecca had spoken to her sister Mary, in which she showed no signs of depression. While Rebecca expressed sadness about Maxwell, she assured her sister that she had no intention of taking drastic action. Additionally, Rebecca had strong religious beliefs and a deep love for her family. It is hard to believe that she would consider such an act. The Rebecca was buried on July 27, 2011, in St. Joseph, Missouri, but the fight for justice for Rebecca's family was just beginning. They publicly expressed doubts about the police findings, believing that the police was rushed. Determined to prove that Rebecca was murdered, they hired their own police and lawyers. The family also sought legal representation and pushed to have the case reopened. Upon reopening the case, they presented several compelling points. First, forensic evidence suggested that Rebecca may have suffered a head injury, but the medical examiner dismissed this claim without strong justification. Additionally, the police did not obtain information from Adam's mobile phone or review his messages to Rebecca on the night of her death. At the family's request, pathologist Dr. Cyril Wedge conducted a second examination of the body. He concluded that the fractures in Rebecca's throat were indicative of manual strangulation, suggesting that she may not have died by her own hand. During the department's investigation, several pieces of information were uncovered, including evidence that Rebecca had been abused before her death. Rebecca's family identified a prime suspect, Adam Shacknai. In February 2018, Rebecca's relatives filed a $10 million wrongful death lawsuit. Adam was accused of conspiring with Maxwell's mother, Dina, and her twin sister, Nina, to kill Rebecca out of revenge. They blamed Rebecca for Maxwell's accident while he was in her care. It was revealed that shortly after Maxwell's accident, around 11 p.m., Nina called Rebecca to discuss the incident. Rebecca did not answer, and surveillance camera footage showed Dina and Nina at the hospital that night when Rebecca died, leading to the sisters being cleared of any involvement. Rebecca's family's attorney accused Adam of assaulting Rebecca. The attorney also accused Adam of raping Rebecca and strangling her, then orchestrating her death. In response, Adam's defense attorney argued that there was no evidence linking him to Rebecca's death. He pointed out that Rebecca's fingerprints and DNA were found on the knife and rope used. A civil trial then took place in April 2018, lasting a month. During the trial, the jury found Adam liable for Rebecca's death. As a result, he was ordered to pay $5.2 million to Rebecca's family for their pain and suffering. Since this was a civil trial, a unanimous decision was not required. Adam did not face any criminal charges, so he could not be sentenced to prison, even though he was convicted. In December 2018, the San Diego Sheriff's Department confirmed that it would not overturn the original verdicts in the case. Civil verdicts can be appealed, and in February 2019, Adam appealed the civil court decision, arguing that there were procedural errors and misconduct among the jurors. Adam then reached a settlement that dismissed the civil lawsuit and reduced the original $5 million settlement to $2 million. Adam was furious about the settlement, claiming that it had been made without his consent. He criticized the judge for being incompetent in granting the settlement without his or his attorney's input. In response, the judge declaring that the civil lawsuit was now over. The jury's verdict in civil court found Adam Shacknai guilty of murdering Rebecca Zahau, and the verdict remains unchanged. However, Rebecca's family is determined to pursue further justice. They have vowed to continue their efforts until Adam is brought to justice. In August 2019, they announced a $100,000 reward for anyone who can provide information about the events surrounding Rebecca's death. Their attorney stated that it is important to gather all possible evidence and urged the sheriff to reopen the investigation immediately. The family is determined to fight the injustice Rebecca faced and will not give up.